He watched his kingdom burn to ash, only to die and wake up in the body of the enemy prince. Talk about a cosmic joke. Now he's the third heir to the very throne that slaughtered his people. Every friendly face at court, a potential assassin. Every banquet is a death trap. To save his fallen country, he has to destroy this empire from the inside out. In this nest of vipers, a smile kills faster than a blade, and survival is 4D chess. Let's see how an enemy prince flips the script. If hell exists, this was it. The battlefield was a slaughterhouse, a graveyard of broken bodies and spilled blood stretching as far as the eye could see. Our hero is gasping for air, terror etched onto his face, when a young soldier riddled with arrows stumbles toward him. The kid manages one last, pained smile. "Burn, my prince," he wheezes, before face-planting into the dirt, dead. Panic sets in. Burn whips around to his other knight, Kiri, who's barely standing, his voice shaking as he delivers the bad news. "This is the only way I can repay you," Kiri chokes out. Burn screams his name, pure desperation tearing through his throat. But Kiri just grips his shoulder. "Hold your sword tight. Never give up." That's his final command. And then, the lights go out. Kiri collapses. Burn stares into the void, screaming his friend's name until his lungs burn. Grief turns to primal rage. He clutches his blade, letting out a roar. This nightmare started because Kairos, a nation founded by dragons and humans, got greedy and demanded the time axis treasure. When Secretia said no, the war began. Burn snaps. He charges into the fray, a blur of steel and fury, cutting down night after night with god-tier speed. He's fueled by vengeance. He spins, gritting his teeth, ready for the next wave, but the cost is coming. Agony explodes, his arm is sliced clean off. This moment marked the beginning of the end for Secretia. His country was doomed. But Burn, brother to the king, keeps fighting like a demon possessed, even with one arm. He's the last one left. "Glory to Kairos," an enemy soldier bellows, raising a hand crackling with magic. The air ignites. Blinding fire surrounds Burn. He knows this is it, the curtain call. Death is knocking, but Kyrie's final words echo in his mind. Never give up. Not today. He tightens his grip, swinging his sword with everything he has left. He is Secretia's faithful sword. Through the choking smoke, the real threats emerge. The heavy hitters have arrived. It's the Balkan mages, the elite killers of Kairos. And pulling the strings, the Mad King plants himself. Then, Arsene, the Archmage, steps forward, lowering his hood with a smug grin. "A pleasure to finally meet you," he sneers. "What's your name, warrior?" "My name is buried with my people," Burn spits back. He launches himself into the air for one last strike. "I am nothing but a sword for my king," he roars, bringing his blade down. Arsene just smiles. "I'll remember you, Prince of Secretia." Bam! A beam of pure magic blasts through Burn. As his vision fades, he looks at his bloodied hands one last time. His life, the fall of his homeland, it all flashes before him. Darkness takes over. And then, light, Burn jolts awake. He's not on the battlefield. He's in a plush bed, and servants are bowing. "Wakey, wakey, your highness." A servant named Jan is ringing a little bell. "Did you sleep well?" "Wait, what is happening?" A maid rolls in a breakfast cart. Burn scrambles out of bed, heart pounding. Panic mode engaged. "You need to hurry. Prince Plants has already left," the servant chirps. Hearing that name, Burn loses it. "Plants?" He looks down at his hands that were supposed to be severed. They're attached. And, smaller? The servants freak out. "Cut off? Don't say such scary things, your highness." They think he's having a nightmare. The maids are confused, but Burn clutches his face, hyperventilating. He screams in rage. The servant asks what's wrong, but Burn's mind is racing. That name, Plants. The hatred burns deep, but his hand is fine. And this servant standing next to him? Total stranger. Suddenly, memories that aren't his start flooding his brain like a download from hell. Gripping his pounding skull, he asks, "Who am I?" Jan looks at him like he's grown a second head. "You're Kalian Rain Kairos, the third prince of Kairos." Burn freezes. He checks his reflection. It's his worst nightmare come true. He's in the enemy's lair. "Kairos?" His voice trembles. How is this possible? Reality is breaking. He spins around, desperate. "What's the date? Tell me right now." "April 28th. The servant stammers. "Year 522, your highness." He's back in the past. The vibe was completely off. He knew this couldn't be real, it had to be a hallucination. This meant the apocalypse was still 10 years away. The war that destroyed everything started over the time axis. A glitched-out artifact rumored to reverse time itself. It just spawned in Secretia's palace one day, and the rumors went viral. Naturally, the continent's big bad, the Kairos Empire, wanted that loot. Kairos demanded we hand it over. Straight-up robbery. But there was no way. I don't care how strong they were, that artifact was Secretia's blood right. You don't hand a reality-warping weapon to the enemy. We gave them a hard no. Kyrus responded with total war. I can still hear Chase screaming at me, begging me not to deploy. Everyone dies out there, don't leave me. I ignored him, and he had to watch me get slaughtered. The last thing I heard was his scream tearing through the chaos. If only we could hit reset. Go back before that cursed item ruined us. Wait, the time axis. The realization hit him like a truck, it worked. He jolted out of bed, heart pounding. A servant asked where he was going, but Kalian was staring at his own hands. Did Chase actually use the artifact? Did he rewind time? If he did, this is it. My one shot to save the Secretia Empire from burning. The servant interrupted. Sir, I know mornings are rough, but we're seriously running out of time. My bad. Coming. Kalian scrambled. Even if he was stuck in the body of a Kyrus prince, the enemy, he wasn't going to waste this second life. Boom. The palace doors flew open. Announcing the third prince, Kalian. The servant was sweating bullets. So sorry, Your Highness. I didn't expect Prince Randall to be early. And there he was, the first prince of Kyrus. Half-brother, full intimidation. He's bloodbound to the holy nation of Tencel. And thanks to the king, we have this awkward family breakfast every morning. But Kalian's memories screamed danger. He bowed low. Apologies for the delay. Randall didn't even blink, just kept sipping his tea like Kalian was invisible. Ice cold. Total disrespect. Whatever. Kalian only had one real brother, and he wasn't at this table. Suddenly, Your Highness. The second prince, Franz. The guy comes sliding in wearing slippers, skidding to a halt. Kalian stared, totally confused. Is this guy for real? What kind of prince shows up like this? Flouting protocol like it's nothing? Is this really the future Mad King? Franz just flopped into his chair in silence. As tea was poured, Kalian analyzed him. The guy looked completely unhinged. He glanced at Randall. Even the first prince wouldn't poke the bear when it came to Franz. Why? Because Franz's mom is the queen, and she runs this palace. Nobody crosses her. Kalian sipped his tea, playing it cool, while internally screaming, how do I survive this snake pit? Suddenly, Franz locks eyes with him. You clueless idiot. Kalian froze. Franz wasn't done. Useless trash. Just like your mother. That hit a nerve. Rage spiked in his chest. His hand shook as he rattled the teacup back onto the saucer. Hold it together, he told himself. Chase bought you this time. Don't blow it. But the anger was choking him. He could barely breathe. Franz Kyrus, the monster who burned his country to ash, is sitting right there. And Kalian is fighting every urge to lunge across the table and end him. Franz caught the glare. He paused. Crash. He smashed his teacup onto the floor. You got a problem with me? Franz hissed. Randall finally spoke up. Enough. Franz saw Randall's icy look, grabbed his head like a headache was splitting it, and kicked his chair over. I'm done. Looking at that red-eyed freak kills my appetite. And just like that, he stormed out. Randall stood up, looming over Kalian. Tread carefully. The king's birthday is coming up. We don't need drama, do we? Kalian smirked internally. Was this guy seriously blaming him? Like he was the problem, not the psycho who just smashed the china? The servant rushed over. My prince, you okay? You look exhausted. The servant knelt with a napkin, reaching for Kalian's shoe. Let me clean that splash. Amidst the tea stains and the silent treatment, a spark of warmth returned. Someone actually gave a damn. Someone was on his side. Kalian caught the servant's shoulder, stopping him. Thank you, really. Normally, in a mess like this, His Highness's eyes would be swimming in bitter tears. So why the smirk? Legend has it that Cispanian, the OG, Dragon Queen of Kyrus, rocked jet-black hair and blood-red eyes in her human form, eyes that literally blazed with sacred fire. But even though Kalian hit the genetic jackpot as the only prince to inherit her iconic look, his power level is absolute zero. The third prince spent his whole life hiding his gaze. He was terrified of triggering his older brother. And the monster behind that trauma? Prince Plants, obviously. It felt kinda invasive, glitching into someone else's memories. But seriously, hiding his face? Just because he was scared of his bro? What a tragic existence. Ian walked up, sensing the vibe shift, and asked if he was okay. Did he need anything? Kalian shut it down and told him to head back. Ian paused. The prince hit different today. Maybe he got too hyped reading those night fantasy novels last night? Kalian just shook his head. Nope. Born to a commoner, the third prince was basically an NPC, weak, timid, and constantly shaking, possessing neither the magic nor the muscle to save his own skin. That was the reality, and the clock was ticking down. To the coming-of-age ceremony, Kalian turned to Ian. Hey, how old am I right now? Ian confirmed. 15 in 4 months. Kalian did the math. The bad ending was coming: a failed poison plot against Queen Silica, followed by his suicide before execution. A cover-up nobody bought. The assassins were already sharpening their blades. Later, Ian crashed into the office, begging him to chill out. But Kalian knew the timeline, 2 months max, before the hammer dropped. stuck in a body he barely knew. He couldn't just sit there and wait for the game over screen. Ian warned him about tripping. Callian ignored it. "Hand me those scissors." Ian froze, totally confused. Scissors, Your Highness?" He placed them on a velvet pillow, hands shaking as he offered them up, then asked, "What's the plan?" Callian flashed a grin. "I'm making a change." If destiny was real, he was about to rewrite the script. Snip, hair hit the floor. Ian started panicking. "What are you doing? Prince Plants is gonna lose it." Callian didn't flinch. "I'm done taking orders from him. For the rest of my life. Relax. I'll handle the fallout." Moments later, Prince Plants showed up, looking at him like he'd officially gone psycho. Ian stood there, petrified, waiting for the explosion. So this was Callian's master plan? Plants slumped into a chair, sneering. "Hey, Red Eyes." Callian shot back. "The name's Callian. Just a reminder." Plants smirked. Right. Then his face twisted. "Like I'm ever calling you that." He snatched a sharp knife off the table and hurled it. The servants gasped. Ian froze. The blade spun straight for Callian, who snatched it midair, bare-handed. Steel sliced into palm. Blood dripped, but his grip didn't waver. Ian started screaming, begging to treat the wound. Plants laughed. Zero remorse. "Whoops, hand slipped. Hurt your whittle hand? Now what?" He kept roasting him. But Callian just tightened his grip on the bloody handle, stood up, and slammed the knife into the table right next to Plants. "Don't stress about it, because whatever you throw at me, I'll be just fine." Plants stared at him, completely shook, and Callian left the knife there, walking out like a boss. Later, Ian was patching up the hand, using every potion he had. "Should I get a healer?" Callian shook his head. "Don't bother. It's just a scratch." Ian looked confused. Callian pressed him. "Why didn't you ask why I tanked that hit? You saw it coming, didn't you?" "I could have dodged that in my sleep." Ian went quiet, then whispered, "I didn't know what Plants would do. I was scared if you moved, he'd take it out on me." Callian stood up. "Great. Now the blood's making me dizzy. I'm gonna wash up and get my head straight, and don't let anyone inside." Ian tried to follow. "Wait, let me help." Callian shut him down. "I need solo time. And seriously, no healers." Ian was dying to call one anyway, figuring it was the smart move. Back in the room, Callian realized he'd tried to flex his aura unconsciously during the fight, but a sharp agony had spiked through his chest. He needed to recreate that feeling to run a diagnostic on this body, and figure out the glitch. Suddenly, he clutched his heart again. What the hell? He felt it, 3 magical seals locking down his heart. Wait, is Callian secretly a wizard? Fast forward 3 days, Ian was losing his mind. The wound still isn't closing. What now? Callian just looked at the blood and smiled. Totally normal. Ian stood there, totally shook, as the royal tailor swooped in and declared everything was good to go. Time for introductions. This guy was Satin, the royal tailor. Callian shot him a look that screamed, "What's the issue?" Satin bowed low, panicking. He just accidentally flashed back to Lady Freya. Ian exploded, shouting his name in a rage. Satin was apologizing profusely. Callian let out a heavy sigh, totally over this kind of drama. He'd been dealing with this curse his whole life, looking exactly like the mother he never met. It was so painful to see his own reflection that he'd actually ripped every single mirror out of his room. He waved it off like it was nothing. Yeah, he was her twin. Big deal. "Just do your job," Callian signaled. Satin said he needed measurements first, but the second he grabbed Callian's wrist, he frowned. "You need to eat more." He apologized for being blunt, but guys his age should have some bulk. Callian insisted he was eating just fine, but a quick glance in the glass confirmed it. He looked fragile. The Kiris royal family wasn't normal. They came from dragon blood, literally descendants of 8 heroes who sealed away an ancient evil. We're talking Sisfanian and Hazar bloodlines here. That meant the Kiris dynasty usually had insane healing factors and magic hacks gifted by Sisfanian's blessing. Basically, Callian's wound should have vanished ages ago. Instead, trying to use mana felt like getting stabbed all over again. He knew he was in deep trouble. No aura, no magic. If he didn't fix this, he was a sitting duck, waiting to be taken out. Satin spun around to Ian, announcing he had some samples ready. "Care for a peek?" Callian turned away, his mind racing. He didn't need clothes, he needed a mana expert, stat. Satin kept chatting, hyping up the outfits he designed for His Majesty's birthday bash. That's when it clicked. The birthday was right around the corner, and he would be there. The legendary wizard, Alan Manisil. Callian had to meet him. This guy was one of the 3 grand wizards on the entire continent to hit the 7th circle of power. He was the icon for a whole generation. The story of how Alan got invited to the king's party, only to get blocked at the door for some shady reason, had spread everywhere, even to neighboring kingdoms, including Secretia. And that same humiliated wizard would clap back 10 years later by becoming the only 8th circle archmage on the map. Nobody knew Alan's future better than Callian. With Alan's help, Maybe he could hack his broken body. He could only guess the real drama. But in Kairos, mages were treated like trash. So, getting Alan to listen was a gamble. The knights basically ran the Kairos palace, totally puppeted by the Brisson family Franz's mom's crew. To checkmate the Brissons later, Kalian needed wizard firepower. If he could recruit Alan to his squad, he might even stop the war that Franz was destined to start. But right now, he had to focus. The maid chimed in, practically vibrating with excitement, asking if the ribbons were too tiny. She was obsessed with the huge ones. Satin added, "How about we drown it in lace?" Kalian felt a headache coming on. He shut it down, cold, no ribbons, and definitely no frills. Did they think he was a doll? Bells and lace? He wasn't trying to look like a court jester. A bit later, sipping his tea and setting the mug down, he reflected on how, slowly but surely, he was settling into this second life. The wound was fading, and Franz was totally ghosting him. Things were suspiciously quiet. Then Ian walked in, dropping the schedule, riding lesson at dawn, and a high-stakes dinner with Her Majesty and Viscount Brisson in the afternoon. Kalian blinked. For real? Ian nodded. Yes. It was a strategy meeting for the upcoming banquet, honoring the king's birthday. Kalian knew he couldn't dodge the villain forever. Ian stepped closer, eyeing him suspiciously. Are you actually training today? Kalian shrugged. Just a few laps. Around the lake. Quit stressing. With a confident smirk, he strolled into the garden. He started sprinting, pushing the pace, but suddenly his body crashed. Lungs burning, he stopped to gasp for air. It felt like dying, and he grabbed a tree just to stay upright. Suddenly, a girl rushed over, voice trembling. Are you okay? It was Merlin, his servant, the second daughter of the fortress guard captain. She dropped the stats. 4.5 laps day 1, 4 yesterday. Today you barely hit 3. He leaned against the bark, staring at her in silence. The truth hit him hard. His stamina wasn't building, it was draining. Merlin offered to fetch a healer, panic in her eyes. Kalian refused instantly, realizing a healer would spot his mana circles immediately. Not even Ian knew Kalian was a secret wizard. One wrong move right now meant game over. She was praying he was okay, but the healer was useless, totally tapped out. Merlin tried to clap back, but Kalian shut him down. He said he was fine, and he meant it. Just a few more grind sessions and he'd be back to peak form, even if his body was shaking like a leaf from the exhaustion. Suddenly, roaring voices broke the silence. A commander was drilling a knight, telling him to lock his gaze on the target, while the other guy had to glue his eyes to the blade. Pure focus. The duo turned around, and realized they'd stumbled onto the training grounds. It was Chaos Knights, sparring everywhere. The captain screamed, "Watch the steel. In a real battle, you'd be gutted already. Stop hesitating and strike." Our MC watched the drills like a hawk. Memories started flooding back. Not bad, he thought, Merlin whispered, that this was Pavel's turf, the knight's training ground. Kalian smirked, saying it looked fun, which made Merlin flip out. You hate fencing, Merlin yelled. Kalian just shrugged. Guess I'm into everything now. Merlin pressed him. Did he know who these guys were? Obviously, Kalian replied. Royal Guards, or basically, the Brisson family's goons meant to keep the king in check, who have flooded the palace just to leash the king's power. Just then, Pavel himself, the big boss commander, stalked over. What's the deal here? He barked. You two have no business loitering. He basically told them to get lost. Apparently, his boys get shy when people stare at them during practice. Merlin wasn't having it. He stepped up, shouting for some respect since the third prince was literally right there. Pavel played dumb. Prince? Where? He looked at Kalian like he was a sewer rat that snuck in. He glared daggers, but Kalian didn't even flinch. He just smiled. Oh, so that's how we're playing it? Merlin was about to blow a gasket, screaming, Are you blind? The third prince is right in front of you. Pavel sneered. I said what I said. He couldn't figure out why the old mage was so triggered over a few words. Let her see even the prince. Pavel started, but the words died in his throat. Pure terror washed over him. Kalian's vibe shifted instantly. His eyes glowed blood red. The knight paused. Had he ever seen this before? Then, a flashback hit him. He remembered yelling at the old Kalian. Back then, the kid would have just scrambled away like a scared puppy. So where was this killer intent coming from? Kalian bowed with mock politeness. Commander, let's clear the air. What is your job exactly? Pavel was shaking, sweat pouring down his face. His squad crept up behind him, asking if something was wrong. The chatter started. Isn't that the third prince? Why is he interrupting? He's just the useless prince everyone looks down on. Pavel tried to regain control, snapping that they were mid-training and didn't have time for distractions. Go deal with your own drama. Merlin was stunned, but Kalian didn't budge. Commander, he said, voice dropping. I asked you a question. The threat hung in the air. Everyone froze. The whispers died out instantly. Pavel stammered. To boost the Royal Guard's power, to protect the country and the ruling dynasty. Kalyan picked up a random tree branch. Strength for protection. Noble. Snap. He broke the branch, staring deep into Pavel's soul. So why do you do it like that? Pavel frowned. What? Kalyan stepped forward. You said you want to buff the royal guard? Let me give you a reality check. First off, your training is garbage. And then, he swung the stick. A blur of motion. The commander's instinct screamed, block or die. Pavel barely got his sword up in time. Clang. The impact was massive. Pavel was rattled, unable to process it. That was just a wooden stick. Kalyan held the pressure with insane strength and released it, sending the knight's sword bouncing back. He dusted off his hands. I've never even held a sword and I read you like a book. How disappointing. Pavel could feel the overwhelming aura. Kalyan wasn't done. Secondly, a defender of the crown. Hurls insults at a prince and points a blade at him? Sounds like treason to me. The commander turned pale. Is this really the same kid? Fear took over, and he screamed, Forgive me, your highness. He wasn't thinking at all. He slammed his head into the dirt, begging, swearing he wasn't a traitor. The other knights stood there, jaws on the floor, watching their tough boss grovel. Pavel's mind was racing. How did this insignificant prince turn into a monster? The audacity was off the charts. He would never let this level of disrespect slide. Ian was spiraling. Kalyan had claimed he was just going to stretch his legs by the lake, but that didn't explain the stallion. Then came the big reveal. Kalyan and Merlin rolled up, grinning like they'd won the lottery, introducing the stolen steed, Raven. Ian lost it. I didn't ask for its name. Where have you been? And where did you swipe a whole horse? Kalyan ignored the panic and checked on the beast. The knight spilled the tea. Prince Franz tried to tame it and failed miserably. The creature was too wild, too ferocious. Kalyan just smirked. Perfect. I'll take it. Ian started shrieking. How can you just snatch something that belongs to Prince Franz? Are you insane? Kalyan shrugged it off. It was a stray. Finders, keepers. He signaled Merlin to keep his mouth shut about the details. Ian was shaking, asking the real questions. But what if he finds out? I told you, it's handled, Kalyan replied coolly. Suddenly, bam. His chest tightened violently. He doubled over, gasping in agony. Ian and Merlin screamed his name, terrified. Kalyan realized the truth instantly. His body wasn't built for this level of stress yet. Ian frantically asked if he'd pushed the training too hard. Kalyan managed a weak smile. No, actually, I haven't had a spar that fun in ages. I feel energized. Ian looked at him like he was hallucinating. What? Before he could spiral further, Kalyan cut him off. Dinner time. Can't be late. Ian snapped back to reality. Right, let's move. But he eyed the beast nervously, totally clueless. Does it bite? Kalyan laughed. No idea. Meanwhile, gossip was already spreading through the kingdom. So he talked back? Interesting. They say even a worm wriggles when you stomp on it. It all made sense. The man crushed a flower in his grip, watching the petals drift to the floor. Even if the kid started kicking and screaming, it wouldn't change his nature. Crushing him now would be boring. Let's let him play. We'll just watch for now. Back at the palace, Kalyan marched forward, grinning. He could never get used to this toxic vibe. Even dealing with it daily was exhausting. The hate in the room was palpable. But then, he noticed something. He glanced at Franz. Why was the brat so quiet today? Was the pressure from the Queen and Viscount Brisson crushing him? The kid had zero poker face. He was still such a child. Suddenly, a familiar perfume filled the air. Kalyan smiled. The real boss had arrived. Celeste Brisson, the second queen of Kyrus. After the first queen passed, Celeste stepped in, flexed her family's muscle, and seized control of the Royal Knight Corps. With the nobility backing the Brisson clan, Celeste's power was skyrocketing every single day. And Kalyan? The third prince, with zero influence, was just a punchline, even to the lowliest commander. The Viscount droned on, proposing they treat Commander Pavel the same way. Celeste nodded, bored. Do it. Pay him off. And in the future, don't bore me with these petty details. She took her seat at the head of the table, looking like she'd rather be anywhere else. Kalyan studied the queen, but she suddenly locked eyes with him. My, haven't you grown lately? Kalyan caught the shade and smiled. Not that much. He knew exactly what she was doing. But trust me, I'm definitely going to grow. He took a sip of wine, staring right back into the queen's soul with zero fear. The whole room felt the tension. Suddenly, a loud voice cracked the silence. For sure, grown or not, I barely recognized you. You really need a haircut, kid. The speaker grinned, pleased with his own joke. Enter Viscount Raynon Brisson, the Marquess's second son. He was still in his growth phase too, and clearly, his ego was growing faster than his brain. But before he could finish, wham! The queen slammed a heavy object on the table. She was fuming. Raynon jumped out of his skin. What? What's wrong? I'm just starving. Get me some food. Hurry. Kalyan watched the scene, unimpressed. The heir to the Brisson Empire was a total dimwit, just as everyone said absolutely charming. The queen ignored the fool and stared daggers at Franz. The silence was deafening. She finally spoke. "Why didn't you tell me?" Franz froze. "Tell you what? About the horse. Why didn't you mention it rejected you?" Franz went pale. She knew. After a tense pause, he let out a nervous chuckle. Celeste's voice was ice cold. "I'd love to hear your version of the story," Franz stammered. "You already heard." Celeste cut him off. "But not from you." Things had spiraled completely out of control. Franz finally lost it, snapping that they should have just admitted that the horse was a useless nag from the start. Clang! He slammed his fork onto the table, stood up, and announced he was done with this. The queen just sat there, frozen, jaw on the floor at the outburst. 3 weeks later, the hype for the king's birthday hit fever pitch. The whole place was a frenzy, people scrambling to pull off the perfect party, screaming for more flowers because, hey, it's His Majesty's big day. Perfection was the only option. A congratulatory delegation from the elves was already rolling through the city. One horse was loaded down with chests, crowds were buzzing, wondering if it was all swag for the king. The banquet promised to be absolutely lit. Everyone assumed the princes were drowning in prep, right? The fans were dying to see them. The excitement was unreal. Meanwhile, our MC was in his room with Jan, who was eyeing the tape measure with a confused look. "Haven't you been eating more?" Suddenly drip. Crimson fluid started gushing from the protagonist's nose. It coated his entire hand and splattered onto the floor. Ian started screaming, totally freaking out. "Your Highness, someone grab a towel, stat." Kalian tried to play it cool. "Chill, it's not that deep. Just haven't been sleeping well." He could see the bleeding had already stopped, but Ian wasn't buying it. Jan apologized for stepping out of line but got real. "It's not sleep, you're wasting away." 3 weeks ago, he wasn't this scrawny. The protagonist realized the jig was up, but flashed a smile. Is it really that obvious? Maybe he went too hard on the cardio? He'd been grinding, but his stamina was only tanking. And considering the sharp pain whenever he tried to channel mana, his heart was definitely failing him. Jan warned him to stop gambling with his health. "Have you seen a doc?" Kalian waved it off. Why call a medic for a little nosebleed? But the vibe in the room shifted back to the doctor issue. Why bleed out in front of everyone? Jan insisted. This wasn't just a random leak, but the protagonist kept gaslighting them, insisting he was fine. He couldn't shake them off. Suddenly, Ian stepped up. "I know why. Because he was totally picking his nose yesterday." Kalian froze, just as stunned as Jan. Ian kept going. "Must be super embarrassing to admit, right?" Kalian was like, "Excuse me?" The servant started cracking up Prince Kalian, a secret nose picker. Ian smooth-talked, saying, "Look, the prince eats and trains like a beast. It's just a bad habit, nothing to worry about." Jan sighed, defeated. "If you say so." He figured he knew his prince better than anyone, anyway. Ian shot Kalian a cheeky wink, but Kalian just stood there, stunned, mentally cursing his servant. He flashed back to Ian asking if he was actually okay earlier. The worse his body got, the more he felt like he was on the brink of collapse. So, instead of admitting the mana sickness, he decided to trash his reputation like that. Well, at least the crisis was averted. Jan decided, "All right, I'll take the suit in for alterations to fit your new size." But the clock was ticking. Ian jumped in, assuring him nothing major was happening, and the prince was free, so there was plenty of time before the event. Jan looked relieved. "Great. In that case, I'll fix the fit for this afternoon." Ian leaned in and whispered, "It's today, isn't it?" The MC knew if he didn't act, his heart condition would be the talk of the palace. He had to meet Alan at all costs. A bit later, Kalian headed to the dining hall with his servant, but a staff member blocked them. "Urgent change of plans. Joint breakfast is cancelled. Individual meetings only." Kalian frowned. Why no group hang? They were splitting everyone up? He hadn't prepped for a one-on-one and felt a spike of nerves. The doors creaked open, and he was told His Majesty was ready for him. Inside King Remine's quarters, Kalian bowed low. "Greetings, Your Majesty." The king didn't even look up. He just kept working, totally ignoring Kalian's existence. He shuffled papers, silent. Kalian thought, I may be bad at etiquette, but this is straight up rude. Finally, the king pointed to a chair. "Sit." Kalian managed a stiff, "Happy birthday, sir." Rumine nodded. "Thanks. How are you?" "You look healthy." Kalian froze, remembering the fearful looks everyone else gave him. The entire world had written him off as a lost cause. Even the servants who barely got near him could smell the death clinging to him. Suddenly, the king's busy schedule made perfect sense. He didn't want quality time. He wanted efficiency. Handling all his sons at once would require actual effort. One-on-one meetings? He could speed run through those without caring. To him, even a birthday visit from his own flesh and blood was just another tedious waste of time. Every layer he peeled back revealed more rot in this dysfunction. A father who viewed his own sons as burdens? Absolutely disgusting. The first prince was a walking void of apathy, and the second was a total savage with zero class. Then, the vibe shifted. Celeste swept into the hall. Rune snapped at her for being late, but Felice just brushed it off with a smirk. That's the power of a queen who can stare down the king himself. A target was painted on his back. With the party kicking off, the real question wasn't if, but who. Which shadow hid the assassin coming for his soul? Outside, the murmurs turned into a roar. Prince Callian had arrived in the square. He was actually showing his face in public, and he wasn't just there. He had a major glow-up. Next to him, the second prince looked like a sloppy, drunken mess. The crowd expected the same old story, dismissing the noise as empty hype. But they were dead wrong. You could feel the electricity in the air. The shift was undeniable. Then, the screaming started. Prince Callian stepped into the hall, and jaws hit the floor. The rumors weren't just talk, they were understatements. Raven hair, crimson eyes, pure Sasanian bloodline on display. He'd finally chopped the bangs that used to hide his face. And that red brooch? It wasn't just an accessory, it was a flex. He was done lurking in the shadows. He flashed a confident smile to the room. Ian leaned in, whispering, "Why is everyone staring at me and my outfit?" Ian honestly thought he was killing it, imagining the tailor's pride. Callian had to burst his bubble. "They're staring at me," he corrected. "They can't believe the useless third prince has the guts to wear gems like this in public." Ian just didn't get it. Did he know how hard it was to rein Slake in? They compromised on the brooch. If Slake had his way, Callian would look like a walking chandelier. The backlash would have been brutal. Ian, clueless as ever, just beamed. "Well, I love it." Those two were blissfully ignorant, just blindly picking accessories. Callian shifted gears. "Ian, didn't you mention your family is based here in Kiris?" Ian's eyes lit up. "You actually remembered?" He nodded energetically. "Yeah, my little sister. And Dad went back to the hometown. The rest are still in the capital." Callian pressed. "When are they hitting the palace?" "Only if they get an invite," Ian shrugged, quickly pivoting to avoid the topic. "So, when do I bring Raven to the garden?" Callian caught the dodge immediately. Ian clearly didn't want to talk family. Everyone has their skeletons, right? Fair enough. Let's wait for the right opening, Callian decided. There's someone I need to lay eyes on first. Who? Ian blinked, totally thrown. Callian raised a finger. "Do you know why they call this place Siegfried's Hall?" "Obvious," Ian scoffed. "Named after the first patriarch, one of the 8 heroes of the two-sided war, Duke Kitros Hans Siegfried, the only ducal bloodline in all of Kiris. Huge influence. Yet, they've been the royal family's lapdogs for over 500 years, guarding Sasanian soil. Back when he was just a baron, that story had actually impressed him." Ian turned, interrupting his thoughts. "So this mystery person you want to meet, it's not a coincidence, is it?" Before he could finish. "He's the one," Callian confirmed. Suddenly, a booming laugh shattered the room's murmur. "Siegfried's Midsummer Night. A classic," the man bellowed. Ian whispered, "Speak of the devil. There he is. Duke Sliman Hans Siegfried in the flesh." He grinned, challenging the room. "Isn't that right?" Callian locked onto him. "A legacy of loyalty and that kind of personality? Perfect. Time to see if the Duke's instincts were as sharp as his reputation." Sliman's expression snapped from joy to fear. He whipped around, locking eyes with Callian, who was subtly leaking mana. "Got him." The Duke spotted the source instantly. Callian teased out a little more power. Ian leaned in. Prince? Looks like the Duke's interested in you." No surprise, Sleeman was one of the continent's 5 sword masters. Of course he'd noticed the aura. Good. But Callian needed to play it cool. Too early to show his hand. He pretended not to notice. Sleeman kept staring, totally bewildered. Moments later, the king hoisted his goblet, commanding the room's attention. "Thank you all for the birthday wishes. Tonight, we celebrate, to the glory of Kairos." As the party raged on, Callian and Ian slipped away, scaling down a rope into the royal gardens. Callian vaulted onto his new steed, grinning. Smart and gentle, just what I expected from Raven. Ian panicked, shouting, "Don't let him fool you. He's a menace when I'm not here." But it was too late. The horse and the prince were already in sync. Arguing with the first guard? Total waste of time. They just needed to hit the main gate. Callian gave a sharp nod. Yes. While they waited, voices drifted from the entrance. Someone was trying to talk their way in. Alan was putting the night crew on notice. "I traveled a hell of a long way for this party," the mage insisted. The knight wasn't having it. "Sir, you can't enter. Turn around and leave. Now." Callian's face lit up. "He's actually here." The mage pushed back, voice dripping with disbelief. "Are you serious? You're blocking me over a piece of paper?" This was Alan Manisil, the legendary mage. But the guards were stone-cold statues. The captain stepped up, arms crossed. "Doesn't matter. No invite. No entry." A smirk curled the mage's lips. "Annoying." He scoffed. So Karis judges guests by their outfit? Classy. Callian frowned. Judging people by clothes? That's low. But wait, Alan Manassel looked like he was fishing for a fight, like he wanted an excuse to bail on Karis. Before the guard could blink, the mage yanked his reins and spun his horse around. Panic spiked in Callian's chest. He spurred his horse forward. Ian cut him off, eyes wide. My prince, you can't. King's orders. Nobody leaves during the bash. Callian watched the mage's silhouette fading into the darkness. Damn it, I'm gonna lose him. Callian made a split-second choice. To hell with the king's orders. He charged toward the gate, shouting back at his servant, Ian, stall the soldiers. Do whatever it takes. He kicked his horse into a gallop. The guards formed a human wall, spears raised. Halt. Leaving is prohibited by royal decree. Callian didn't even slow down. With a powerful leap, his horse cleared the blockade, landing smoothly outside the palace walls. The soldiers scrambled to chase. They were gearing up for a pursuit. Ian's heart hammered against his ribs. Think, Ian, think. He replayed Callian's command. Stop them. He bit his lip until it nearly bled. Focus. He was Prince Callian's shadow. Protecting him wasn't just a job, it was his life. Whatever the cost. Ian marched up to the guards, chest heaving, and bellowed, Stop. Duke Siegfried authorized the prince's departure. A guard scoffed, eyeing him suspiciously. Who are you to drop the duke's name? Ian reached up, letting his hair cascade down in a distinctive style. I am Syrian Siegfried, the duke's eldest son. Later, when the duke heard the story, he laughed so hard he nearly choked. Ian turned 50 shades of red. It's not that funny, sir, Ian mumbled. Romain wiped a tear from his eye, wheezing. Ian bowed his head. Please forgive me. He couldn't believe he'd pulled such a crazy stunt. Impersonating the young master? Insane. Romain patted Ian's head, grinning like a proud dad. That's my boy. The one who left the nest way too early. You made the right call. Ian looked up, confused. But sir, this is bad. This is definitely going to blow up. The king won't let this slide. Romain waved a hand dismissively. I'm not asking, and he's not telling. Ian blinked. What? He won't bring it up, Romain repeated. You're overthinking it, kid. Look, if a child gets help from House Siegfried, it puts the king in a tight spot. He'd have to question our loyalty, doubt our intentions. But if he doesn't punish us, it proves we're tight with the prince. And that sends the Bryson faction into a frenzy. It validates our alliance. Bryson would see that as a massive threat. So, they'll bury it, pretend it never happened to save face. Politics 101. Back on the road, Callian finally ran Alan down. The mage pulled up. Doesn't look like you're here to scold me for gatecrashing. Alan pulled back his hood, revealing his face. Why is the third prince chasing an old man in the middle of the night? Callian studied him. Old man? The rumors were true. Reached the seventh circle of magic, and time rewinds. The guy looked barely legal. It's late, Callian noted. You really leaving? Alan shrugged. Tried to open the door. Threshold was too high for a peasant like me. His tone was pure sarcasm. Callian felt a twitch of irritation. Really? We're doing riddles? Two can play that game. Callian smirked. Maybe you were banging on a closed door when another one was wide open. He locked eyes with the mage. Like, say, the invitation I specifically left for you? Where'd you stash it? Alan waved a hand airily. Too busy fighting the wind. Forgot to sweep the dust off the porch. Didn't think your guards would be stupid enough to block me. Callian realized something. He wasn't apologizing. He was criticizing. Is he honest or just totally shameless? Alan smirked back. Interesting kid. First time they met, Callian looked like a standard 14-year-old. But now, Alan's gaze dropped to Callian's hands on the reins. That grip, that stance. Wait a minute. Alan moved fast. Forgive me. He snatched Callian's wrist. Magic surged. A sharp jolt of pain stabbed Callian's heart, and he gasped, clutching his chest. Brilliant light exploded from the point of contact as Alan's mana surged violently into the boy's body. The horse freaked out, rearing up and breaking the connection before finally calming down. Through the agony, Alan noticed Callian's pores slamming shut. The wind wasn't the issue here. Callian had already clocked the wreck his body was in. Alan pulled himself together. The kid was right. He hadn't been able to channel a drop of mana for a while. But Alan knew that wasn't the real problem. Not even close. The rot went deeper. Alan stared at his hand, a scowl forming on his face. Sirius treated mages like total garbage, which was ironic, considering they carried dragon blood. A legendary mage had come to this family on purpose, planning to make them look like absolute clowns, for letting a gem like him slip through their fingers. But was running into this young prince on the road just a coincidence? Or was it straight up destiny? He paused, wondering why he felt such a pull toward the boy, weighing his next words carefully. The kid was sharp. He'd sniff out a lie in a second. Alan hopped off his mount and dropped his real name. I want to assist you. He could practically smell the danger hovering over the boy. Alan wasn't blind to the political mess here. The third prince was public enemy number one. totally isolated. With a casual flick of a finger, Alan warped reality. A soundproof dome shimmered into existence around them. Kalian's eyes went wide as Alan jumped down. Silent casting? Without a single chant? Is this guy seriously a seventh circle mage? Alan cut to the chase. Is your goal just to stop this specific event? Or do you want to rip out the root of the problem? He flashed a knowing smirk. For right now, just prevent it. Alan blinked, surprised by the hesitation until the kid dropped the hammer. But I'm taking out the source, too, even if I have to seize the throne to do it. The mage's grin widened. So the crown is just a stepping stone for his endgame? Here stands a dying prince who looks exactly like his Vanyan, and he needs Alan's power to pull this off. Now things are getting spicy. Let's see what you've got. He demanded Kalian give him a proper invitation. Triumph washed over the prince's face. He dropped to one knee, voice beaming. Kalian Rain Sirius greets his mentor. And I, Alan Manassel, accept his highness's invite. The pact was sealed. I'm going to save you, kid. Cut to Ian and his dad. 100% sure nobody at the palace knows who I am? Ian asked, nervous. Relax, I handled everything. The Duke waved him off. Ian rubbed his chin, looking anxious. If I get made, I can't stay by his highness's side. The Duke chuckled. My own son, yet your loyalty lies elsewhere. Ouch, you're barely loyal to me at all. The joke hit a little too hard, making Ian shift uncomfortably. How's Leah? Ian deflected, crushing it. She's running the family perfectly in your absence, his father replied. The Duke stood up from the bench, stretching his back. Look, whatever happens, if you ever get tired of playing butler for some guy, home is open. Though I have a feeling I'll be waiting a while. Until next time. Ian asked what he meant. We'll see each other in 3 months. Simeon raised an eyebrow. So, you're actually thinking about quitting the servant life? Ian interlaced his fingers, nervous energy spiking. I'm almost 15. His dad looked confused until Ian got serious. Listen close. You know our nickname? The Syria's Elephants. We haven't looked at the throne in years, sure, but we're the true kings of the beasts. Even predators don't mess with elephants. Ian looked up. Why bring this up now? Suddenly, his dad grabbed him in a bear hug, shouting with hype. Because our name, the one you think is worthless, is ironclad. Do whatever you want. Ian's lip quivered, tears welling up. The Duke squeezed harder. You little rascal, making your old man worry like this. He crushed him so hard the boy winced. Dad, I'm actually gonna die right now. When his father finally let go, Ian smoothed out his outfit. Duke Simeon. He bowed formally, waved goodbye, and hurried off. Watching him leave, Simeon shook his head. Useless stubbornness. He really is a Siegfried. He flashed back to earlier events. It was crazy how fast the boy had grown. What was he plotting? Next morning, a flashy carriage arrived, emblazoned with 7 red flowers and a silver wand. It rolled up to the palace. The nobles gaped. I heard his contract with Reborn expired, a woman whispered. But how did he end up in Sirius? Her companion asked. Makes sense after that mess. If he wasn't tight with King Reborn, he would have bailed ages ago. It has to be that rumor. The gossip mill went into overdrive talking about Alan's son. Right on cue, the carriage door swings open. The mage steps out, scanning the crowd with a smirk that's equal parts nervous and amused. Honestly, his new apprentice pulled a boss move. It was actually kind of sweet. Yesterday, he gave the kid a deadline, 9:30 sharp. He'd been stalling, waiting for the perfect moment to make an entrance, and completely flipped the script. He wanted the nobles whispering, stirring up the drama between his highness and the Breezen faction. Finally, a palace butler scrambles out, looking totally shook by the sudden arrival. But the king? He was waiting for this. Roman didn't even blink when the mage walked in. But when Roman heard the pitch, his mask cracked. You want back in, reinstated in Kylus? The king did the math instantly. To take down Queen Like, he needed a heavy hitter, someone with Alan Manas level power. But Alan offering himself up on a silver platter? Suspicious. Roman narrowed his eyes. What's the catch? What are you planning? Alan cut the act. I'll be straight with you. Last night, I spotted a stray in the square. Black cat, glowing red eyes. Sharp little thing. Figured it's worth teaching a few tricks. But I'm currently homeless. Roman froze, decoding the metaphor instantly. And what exactly do you want to teach this cat? Magic, obviously. And survival, Alan replied. But I need a distinct environment. I need the landlord to help take out the trash. Roman hesitated, the request sinking in. You think he can handle the heat? The king asked, skeptical. Look, I've decided to make Prince Callian my apprentice, Alan stated flatly. Breezen can't touch us. Besides, if a bored wizard wants to help a prince with a hobby, who's gonna stop me? That was the invite Callian needed. Roman clenched his fist, locking in his decision, and stood up. Done. I'll clear the space, Roman said, voice grim. Place is a disaster zone anyway. Can't get much worse. He walked over to his desk, brow furrowed. but there's something bothering me, rumors say. The kid is nothing special. Alan blinked, genuinely confused. Nothing special? The kid's health bar was practically zero, a medical anomaly. It was a miracle he was even standing, Roman continued. I heard he's full of fear, a coward, terrified of horses, yet he chased you down? The math doesn't add up. If he had any potential, I would have seen it by now. Alan let out a dry laugh. So, you're running on gossip? Alan leaned in. Do you even know how tall your son is? Roman froze. The silence was loud. Alan just nodded proof that the king was a stranger to his own son. Alan stood up. Sometimes attention is poison, sure. But right now, indifference isn't a cure. And being busy is just a lazy excuse. Roman bristled at the tone. Watch it. I'm doing this for his own good. It's ridiculous I have to explain this. But Kalian matters to me. He's my favorite. Roman turned to leave, conversation over. Snap. Alan flicked his fingers. A magic barrier slammed down, blocking the exit. We aren't done with the idle chatter, Roman roared. You dare use magic in the royal palace? Alan ignored the outburst. The prince's lips are cracked dry. Breathing, ragged, skin turning blue, nails purple. Alan stepped closer. His clothes were hemmed in a rush. That ceremonial outfit was ready a month ago. Do you know how much weight he's lost since then? He can barely open his eyes to get out of bed. He is fading. The truth hit Roman like a physical blow. Neglect was killing his son. Keep standing on the sidelines, Alan warned, and you'll be visiting a grave. Meanwhile, a maid rushed up to Ian, panic in her eyes. It's almost noon. The prince hasn't touched his tea. Ian forced a calm smile. Give it here. I'll make sure he drinks it. Ian took the tray and slipped into the dark chamber. Kalian was tossing in his sleep, face twisted in pain. Yesterday had nearly broken him. Suddenly, a deep voice boomed from the shadows. Still out cold? Ian spun around, terrified, and nearly dropped the china. He let out a strangled yelp. It was Alan, casually strolling toward the prince's bed like he owned the place. Ian threw himself in the way, blocking the path. You can't be in here. This is highly inappropriate. No one enters Chermil Palace without a permit. Ian stared, horrified. Did you just teleport in here? He shot back a cocky grin. It's just a little transformation spell, high-tier stuff. As you can see, I'm pretty cracked at magic. Ian wasn't having it. Spare me the lecture, he snapped. You need to bounce, now. The prince is in critical condition. The mage cut him off mid-sentence. Wait, you recognize him, don't you? He was in Reborn a few years back. Did he seriously think a growth spurt would fool me? The mage scoffed. He used to call him Baby Elephant, a nickname that dragged up memories of his father. His dad swore he'd blend in, that his small frame wouldn't draw attention. So much for that he got clocked instantly. The commotion jolted Kalian awake. Rubbing his eyes, he mumbled, How long was I out? Ian winced, awkwardly gesturing toward Alan. Your Highness, we have company. Kalian scratched his head, totally confused. He definitely wasn't expecting a visitation the second he opened his eyes. They got down to business. Alan tossed him a pouch of pills. Take one a day, no skipping. Kalian raised a brow. Medicine? Exactly, his teacher nodded. You're dealing with a double whammy right now. First, your mana control is a disaster. And second, your body is deteriorating fast. Kalian shut his eyes, exhausted. He hadn't even voiced his symptoms yet, but Alan read him like an open book. The mage frowned, leaning in close. You possess the blessing, correct? Kalian nodded. Yeah, it grants me rapid healing, plus a natural affinity for magic. Though lately, it feels like that healing factor has ghosted me. And potentially heart failure? Alan pressed. Has it ever crossed your mind that those two things don't usually mix? Healing and raw mana? Kalian shrugged. I figured the blessing was just reinforcing my heart to handle the load. Considering the heart pumps both life and mana, it made sense. The mage cracked a smile. Spot on. The blessing does fortify the heart. But here's the kicker. That power didn't vanish. Your heart is fine, and your mana flow isn't blocked. Kalian looked confused. Then what's killing me? Alan dropped the bomb. Have you considered that Sisfanian's blessing didn't leave? It just hit its absolute limit? Kalian's eyes went wide. It clicked. Something was actively draining the blessing's energy, meaning it had zero juice left to heal even a paper cut. So, I'm being poisoned? He asked, voice tense. The mage nodded grimly. If you didn't have that blessing, you would have been 6 feet under years ago. Your heart is under massive strain, constantly fighting off a lethal toxin. It's burning through your healing factor, which is why your body violently rejects any attempt to channel mana. Kalian rolled the pill between his fingers, mind racing. The original Kalian wasn't just assassinated. He was being slowly poisoned long before the end. This wasn't impulsive. It was a long con. But if the kid was already dying from poison, why bother strangling him? A dark, chilling aura flared up around him. Alan froze, staring in shock. That kind of bloodlust was terrifying. especially for a 14-year-old boy. Just who is this kid? Callian broke the silence. So, these pills, they're the cure? Antidote, the mage confirmed. Whipped it up in a hurry, but I guarantee it works. Callian stared at the small sphere in his hand. After a long pause, he looked up. Hypothetically, what happens if I take the poison and the antidote simultaneously? The mage panicked. Are you insane? If you keep drinking the toxin, the antidote just delays the inevitable. That's good enough for me, Callian mused. Alan looked horrified. You can't be serious. You're actually going to dose yourself with both? I have a hunch, Callian replied coolly. The poison. It's in my morning tea. I drink it every single morning in front of everyone. The perfect way to confirm I've ingested it. And since I'm the only one drinking it, it was the perfect delivery system. The original Callian probably felt sick, stopped drinking the tea, and ruined their plan. That's likely why they resorted to strangulation. But now that I'm in this body, the game has changed. I don't know what their plan B is. So, until I expose the puppet master, I have to play along and keep drinking. He explained his logic, but the teacher narrowed his eyes. Is that the only reason? Callian sighed. If I stop the tea, and they realize I know, Ian and the other servants become loose ends. They'll be targeted. The killer thinks they're untouchable as long as I stick to the routine. The magician looked away, deep in thought. The baby elephant is going to be just fine, he muttered softly. Then, clutching his head in frustration, he groaned, Fine, I understand. I'm in. So, what's the play? Callian recalled a lesson from his father. To bait out an enemy's ace, you have to discard your own. He missed him at times like this. I need you to sneak me out of the palace. Tomorrow night. Meanwhile, panic erupted in Prince Franz's chambers. Servants were frantically trying to wake him. The queen was on her way. Her heels clicked rapidly down the hall. They managed to rouse him, but there was zero time to make him presentable. Dismissing the servants, the queen marched to the bed and ripped the curtains back. Look at you. Late again. For your afternoon agenda. Franz groggily rubbed his face, barely conscious. The queen recoiled, her face twisting in disgust. Ugh, you reek of alcohol. Even after getting banned from drinking at the opening ceremony, this guy clearly hadn't learned a thing. Snatching a glass of water from the nightstand, he glared at her. What was she doing here? She needed to say her piece and get out. She bit her lip, barely containing her frustration. Then, she dropped the bomb. Callian had secured a mentor, and not just anyone, a mage of the 7th Circle, Alan Manisil. The mere name had the nobles shaking in their boots. Plants scoffed. So what? The queen didn't appreciate the attitude. She closed the distance instantly. Her voice dropped to a lethal whisper. She hadn't invested everything in him just to watch it burn. Her command was ice cold. Get dressed. Now. She signaled the servants to swarm in, reminding her son that the world was watching. Today, of all days, he lived in a fishbowl. Do not embarrass me. She swept out of the room, leaving Plants trembling with pure, unadulterated rage. He launched himself out of bed and hurled the water glass at the floor. It shattered, slicing his skin in the process. Panic ensued as servants rushed to help, but he ignored the blood dripping from his hand. With a furious swipe, he screamed at them to get lost. The mere image of Callian's face made him grind his teeth loud enough to crack them. Meanwhile, outside, the king led a grand procession through the city streets. The crowd went wild, screaming sincere birthday wishes from every corner. Chants for the glory of Kairos filled the air. Perched on his dad's shoulders, a kid pointed excitedly at the royals. Eyes wide, the kid shouted that the dark-haired prince was the main event, the one he'd been waiting to see. Prince Callian offered a wave, and the crowd erupted. Walking alongside, Ian leaned in, his voice tight with worry. How are you holding up? He actually looked alive today. Callian flashed a reassuring smile. I'm fine, Ian. Just needed a good night's sleep. Maybe the antidote was finally kicking in. The crushing chest pain was gone, and breathing felt effortless. Ian wasn't buying it completely. He grumbled about the insane schedule. After this parade, it's nonstop. A horse show, then the ball. You could have another nosebleed. It's too much. Callian let out a nervous chuckle. You're overthinking it, Callian insisted. As long as he could stand on his own 2 feet for the events, that was a win in his book. He scanned the cheering masses, returning smiles, until his gaze snagged on something off. 2 figures standing out like a sore thumb. A guy and a girl lurking in the alleyway. Callian locked eyes with the man and froze. It was him, Kiri, his old friend, the man who had once shielded him with his own life. Staring at that face, Callian had zero doubts. It was definitely Kyrie. But what was he doing here in Kairos? Suddenly, Raven picked up on his master's spike in adrenaline. The horse veered sharply toward the alley. Ian grabbed the bridle instantly. Whoa, what's got into him? He yanked the reins, forcing Raven back into formation. Did you see someone? Ian asked. Callian cast a longing look back at the pair, already retreating into the shadows. He patted Raven's neck. You felt it too, didn't you? But they couldn't break rank now. In his mind, he sent a silent message. Wait for me, Kiri. I will find you. Arriving at the venue, they were welcomed by the man of the hour, Melfer Pollen. The tycoon behind the Pollen shopping center bowed to the king. Your Majesty, we've got quite the show lined up for you. I think you'll be pleased. Kalian realized Pollen had taken over the horse show arrangements, sidelining the Bryson family. That saved Kalian a headache, but a new worry started gnawing at him. If history repeated itself, Prince Randall was about to get hurt, and Baron Pollen would end up with a noose around his neck. Melfier ushered them to the VIP section. Above their reserved seats hung 3 massive chandeliers. Kalian's eyes darted upward instantly. He spotted the faulty one, the death trap waiting to drop. Something didn't add up. With the king in attendance, security should have been watertight. Shouldn't they have triple-checked everything? Especially since the Pavel Knight Corps was running security detail. Just thinking of that unit brought their annoying commander to mind. Kalian smirked. Maybe he'd throw the guy a bone and let him live this time. As Melfer guided him to his chair, Kalian leaned in and whispered, "That chandelier above my head. It's making me nervous. You might want to check it." The Baron blinked in confusion, looked up at the fixture, and frowned. The gears started turning. Showtime. The riders stormed the arena below, circling to thunderous applause. Melfer clenched his fists, adrenaline pumping. This was his big break, sitting right next to the royal family. He was dying to chat up the king, but his eyes drifted to Kalian, who looked bored out of his mind in the back row. Kalian's warning echoed in his head. Did they actually inspect the ceiling? The doubt started to eat at him. Playing it safe, he ordered an emergency check. Lo and behold, the rope holding the massive fixture was frayed down to a single thread. Without the prince's tip, that chandelier would have crushed Prince Randall flat. It would have been a massacre. He glanced back at Kalian in awe. How did he know? Kalian just smiled, watching Baron Pollen sweat. Crisis averted. He kept his distance from the king, and it paid off. He wasn't just thinking about the here and now, he was playing the long game. Quick wins are for amateurs. But the Brisson family, why were they going nuclear on Pollen? It felt personal. That's when he locked eyes with Plants. A flicker of surprise. Then boom, Plants stared him down and spat. Know your place. Filthy, pathetic blood. The words tasted like bile. Even with the crowd roaring below, that insult made his throat burn. The prince didn't whisper. Randall, the king, the queen, had snapped toward him. Total shock. Kalian buried his face in his hand, shielding his expression. Pathetic blood? Oh, Plants. You have no idea what you just started. Never expected Plants to actually be useful. Celeste has to be fuming right now. How low can she go before she hits rock bottom? The queen snapped her fan open, hiding her face but shooting daggers at her son with her eyes. She'd warned him 1,000 times not to be an idiot. But then, she caught his look. That wasn't a mistake. He was smiling. He wanted her to panic. This whole scene, he staged it. But why now? The nobles were already whispering. Did he really just say that? The rumors were flying. Right in front of King Romain? That's political suicide for Plants. Suddenly, Prince Kalian, and his backing from Alan Manisil, looked like the only viable option for Crown Prince. The fence-sitters have to jump. It's decision time. The show wrapped up. Randall dodged a bullet, and Romain barely acknowledged the drama. Ignoring Plance's outburst completely, Kalian frowned. Things were going his way, but the queen? She was way too calm. If framing Pollen was her play, did Plante's little stunt actually blindside her? He studied her face for clues. It reminded him of chess matches with his brother. Flashback to a game. Do you think the Kiris accident was just a hit on the royals? He'd asked. Or an outside job? His brother didn't rule it out. If it were that simple, he'd said, it'd be boring. He raised the stakes. You're losing, by the way. Do you even know how much debt you're racking up? His brother just laughed. I'm keeping score. I've got it all calculated. Then he dropped a hint. That accident. Wasn't it a little too loud? Like the bad guys wanted to be seen attacking the royals? Think about it. If the boss of the second biggest trading house in Kyrus goes down, who wins? Lennon Brisson, the guy running the #1 house. It's basic math. Back in the present, Ian was prepping the horses. Kalian threw a question at him. What's House Pollen's cash cow? Ian didn't hesitate. Diamond mines? Definitely. Bingo. If Pollen gets wiped out, Brisson corners the diamond market. Lennon did his homework. Kalian needed to grasp the full picture before saving Pollen's skin. But saving a life isn't free. He hopped in the saddle. Ian, clear my schedule for the night. Ian blinked, panicked. But sir, the ball. Every noble worth knowing will be there. Kalian dramatically clutched his head. Oh, the distress. I'm simply too heartbroken by my brother's words to party. Perfect excuse. He rode off. Later, back at the palace, King Roman had a secret meeting the second he walked in. Now, sitting alone, the weight of it all hit him. Alan's warning echoed in his head. Keep doing nothing, and you'll lose him. Then Plance's outburst. It brought back the memory of her Kalian's mother dying, begging him to keep their son safe. Bang! The door flew open. The butler looked terrified, failing miserably to block the queen's unauthorized entry. Celeste marched to the center of the room, scanning the king like a predator sizing up prey. A maid quickly snatched 2 half-empty teacups from the table. "I'll get fresh tea, your majesties." Celeste froze. 2 cups? Who was here before her? She hadn't been briefed on any visitors. Romain waved the maid off. "Don't bother. She won't be staying long." The queen stiffened at the slight. "Why are you here, Celeste?" he asked. She sat down, composing herself. Barely holding it together, she played her card. House Brisson will take full responsibility for today's unpleasantness. She bit her lip, a crack in the armor. Romain saw it. Was she really desperate enough to humble herself, just to fix Plant's mess? Her son's reputation meant everything, but she still had that trademark nerve. The spectacle was impressive. She lied smoothly. Baron Pollen deserves a reward for such a memorable event. Don't you agree? Romain just looked at her. Something tells me you've already decided exactly what that word should be. She snapped her fan open, flashing a smile that screamed defeat disguised as grace. She was handing over House Brisson's golden goose exclusive rights to the royal stables. The king's hand actually shook with suppressed excitement. He had to hide a grin, wondering if she realized she was bleeding out one of her most profitable assets. Everything was playing out exactly as Alan had scripted. The mage had broken it down earlier. The queen knew she had to sacrifice a pawn to clean up Prince Plant's mess, but she wasn't desperate enough to pull her station knights back from the palace yet. So, she would lowball him with an offer she claimed was a fair trade. The moment she dropped that offer, Romain needed to take the deal and let the current drama slide. Romain couldn't tell if this was a mentor's strategy or a student's masterclass. He told the queen that he and Plants would make a grand entrance together that evening. She ate it up, claiming Plants would be thrilled, just as the deal stipulated. Boom, doors opened. Romain and Plants walked into the ballroom like besties, and Baron Pollen officially secured the bag on those supply rights. The whole court saw the play. This was Selike mortgaging her influence to save her son. House Brisson just took a massive L. The nobles finally clicked. That was the price tag for the prince's freedom. Turns out, Prince Kallian isn't just a bystander. He holds enough leverage to make the queen jump. Time to see what the kid is really worth. Cut to Kallian's room. It looked like a high-end department store exploded. He scratched his head, looking at the piles of loyalty, realizing these people would flip sides for a ham sandwich. Ian was stressing over the clutter, wondering what to do with the loot. Kallian enjoyed watching Plants and Brisson lose clout, but he wasn't trying to build a squad of fake friends. "Return to sender," he ordered. "Accept the stuff from the Mage Association and Baron Pollen, and make a list of who sent what." Ian pointed to a specific small box and said, "This one has to be from the Baron." Kallian spun around, intrigued, only for Ian to pull out a necklace the size of a dinner plate. Plot twist. It wasn't for Kallian. It was for his horse. The prince stood there, totally blank-faced, then noted that was a suspiciously niche gift. Ian admitted he might have tipped the Baron off. When asked for a lead, mentioning how much His Highness obsessed over his steed, Kallian stared at the bling. "Is this jewelry for the horse, not the rider?" It was a test. If he accepts this gift, he's basically signing a receipt for a bribe. And next time, it'll be straight cash, and he'll be in their pocket. But it's not that simple. The Baron is tripping if he thinks he can buy the prince with some sparkly accessories. "Find out the market value," Kallian ordered Ian, "and pay the Baron exactly what it's worth." Ian tried to box it back up. "You're buying it? This is a one-of-a-kind piece, though." Kallian cut him off. He didn't care about rarity. "You want unique? Look at that." He pointed to a potted nightmare, a carnivorous plant, and Ian, reading the tag nervously, confirmed it was from the Mage Association. Kallian smirked, noting their aesthetic was definitely distinct. Ian found a note tucked in the leaves. It was super rare, complete with care instructions. A magical flower that dumps bioluminescent pollen right before it dies. Huge hit with herbalists. Kallian eyed the plant, and a wicked idea just clicked. Ian asked if they should return it, but Kallian shook his head. Keep it. He had a plan. Later, tea was served. Suddenly, crash. The cup shattered against the floor, and the maid flinched hard. Ian scrambled to the prince, checking for burns, but Kallian was chill. Hand just slipped. He lied. Shame about the tea, though. Ian barked at the servants to clean the mess, annoyed that the spill had splashed all over the mage's rare flower. "It was a gift. You think it'll survive?" Kallian waved it off. "It's fine. Not like the tea is poison." At that moment, the maid cleaning the shards froze. Kallian told her to leave the plant. He liked it. Because of the poison in the tea, the leaf withered instantly. That evening, Kallian strolled out of the palace with Alan, thanking him for the time. Alan brushed it off. "Don't thank me, kid. How could I say no? When you were literally gambling with your life." He chuckled, noticing the prince's vibe. "You look way happier out here." Kalian beamed, almost blurting out the truth. He caught himself just in time. Just, my lovely, long-awaited walk, he stuttered, swallowing the words that it was his first time ever stepping outside freely. Gotta keep it together, he muttered. I am Kalian. He shook his head, admitting he hadn't touched grass outside the palace walls in forever. Hey Teach. He shot a glance at his mentor. Did the king actually sign off on this little field trip? Alan paused, considering. Guess we're about to find out. Kalian wasn't even surprised. Typical. He was just as guilty. Anyway, I totally ditched Ian, Kalian confessed. Told him I'd be back by midnight. But let's be real, dawn is looking more likely. You really are my student, Alan noted dryly. Kalian smirked. I'll take that as a badge of honor. Then, Alan's expression hardened. The antidote? He pressed. You sticking to the schedule? Popped one this morning, Kalian replied, feeling way stronger. Strong enough that our mystery poisoner is probably sweating bullets right now. The trap was set. All they needed was for the rat to take the bait. Alan grinned. Impressive strategy, kid. Then he added, maybe you didn't need my help after all. Not true, Kalian shot back immediately. None of this goes down without that gift you sent. Alan wheeled his horse around, letting out a heavy sigh. I'm leaving you here. Though honestly, my gut says I should stay. Kalian yanked his hood up, chuckling darkly. I got this. You know that. Alan nodded. Mages Association, Tenor Street, the teacher instructed. Meet me there the second you handle your business. Good luck, Kalian called out. They split up, Alan riding off while Kalian melted into the crowd of a bustling shopping district. He hit up a blacksmith first, snagging a sword. He inspected a dagger, testing the weight. This suits me, he thought. It would serve as a decent placeholder until his custom gear was ready. He headed for the alleyway, staring into the gloom. Time to hunt for intel. Secretia wasn't just a neighbor. They ran a massive spy network across the entire continent. But these weren't just gossips. Every agent endured years of brutal training. They were elite assassins. And the architects of this deadly web? King LeBlun and Byrne. His past self. He hopped off his horse on Tenor Street, standing right in front of the dovecote. He stared at the sign, a chill running through him. He knew exactly how lethal this place was, because he was the one who trained them. But now, he was the Prince of Kales. Enemy territory. Two drunks stumbled past, and Kalian immediately tugged his hood lower. If they realized who was lurking near their HQ, he could kiss a safe return goodbye. Pitch black hair, glowing red eyes, way too distinctive. He had to stay invisible. He slipped inside the dovecote, noticing instantly that the interior was huge, way bigger than it looked from the street. Looking for a pigeon? The shopkeeper asked. Nope, Kalian replied. Those birds haven't woken up yet. The man didn't miss a beat. They simply like to sleep. Kalian stepped closer, flashing a knowing smile. Maybe they're just exhausted. Long flight, you know? Exactly why they're still snoozing, the man countered. Kalian scanned the room, spotting the decoys. Birds with keyholes in their necks. Tired birds could rest their wings here, he said smoothly. The man's eyes narrowed instantly. Why are you here? The shopkeeper demanded. Bird food, Kalian replied. And I think I'm in the right place. Whoosh, a knife flashed, slashing past Kalian's hood. Don't recall selling pigeons lately, the man snarled. Okay, this guy's a pro, Kalian thought. Definitely not a civilian. In this weak body, he couldn't win a fistfight. He pushed the blade away from his face, keeping his expression calm. Obviously, the bird left the nest to find food, Kalian said, keeping the code going. So of course you wouldn't be selling it here. Birds meant spies. Secretia's golden rule was total anonymity. Even agents didn't know each other. That way, if one got burned, the network stayed safe. The man glared. Whose bird are you? Kalian calculated fast. Even if he dropped his father's name, nobody could verify it. I'm a nebula bird, he bluffed. The man's eyes went wide. Hook, line, and sinker. Now, Kalian commanded, feed this bird. It just left the nest. The irony was delicious. The first prince of Kailas, using Secretia's own spies, to steal intel on Kalis itself. The shopkeeper stepped back, triggering a hidden mechanism that opened a passage to the second floor. Follow me. Kalian scanned the architecture as they walked. Sneaky. Didn't know about this safe house. You must be new, the man grunted. Remember the name. We'll be seeing each other. I'm White Eagle. Kalian nodded, playing along. Red Swan. They reached the upper room. What kind of food? The man asked. Kalian crouched down, getting on his level. One item. One specific piece of information. Before he could finish, the man's hand shot out. 8 florins. Up front. Kalian stared at him, totally baffled. The guy named the price before Kalian even told him what he wanted? The intel he desperately needed. But was this a setup? A calculated move to lull him into a false sense of security? Catching the skepticism in his eyes, the White Eagle just shrugged. Flat rate. Take it or leave it. Kalian didn't hesitate, sliding the payment across the table. In exchange, the scroll changed hands. Kalian scanned every inch of the document, eyes narrowing. You sure this is legit? White Eagle didn't blink. With the sheer scale of the area you requested, that's the only spot that fits the bill. Useful, Kalian muttered, offering a brief nod of thanks. He turned on his heel to leave, but White Eagle's voice cut through the air. Watch yourself. He flashed a sharp, knowing grin. The rules down there? They don't play nice. Kalian returned the smirk, stepping out into the night. Harsh? Please. A White Eagle, coiled to strike at any second, is way more lethal. He mounted his horse, galloping toward the coordinates. The route forced him toward a bridge, but the path was choked with robed figures. Kalian frowned. What the hell is a gathering like this doing in the dead of night? Low profile is key here. But the map didn't lie, he had to cross this specific bridge. Time to make a move? Fast. He urged the horse forward, but a figure stepped directly in his way. Kalian's patience snapped. The hell do you think you're doing? Why block the road? The man bowed his head, voice somber. Forgive me, but the departed are embarking on their final voyage. Unless it is an emergency, we ask that you wait. Kalian blinked, confused. Then, his eyes drifted to the dark water. Lotus flowers, glowing with candlelight, drifted beneath the bridge. A funeral procession. The realization hit him, and he instantly swung down from his saddle. I won't disturb their passage, Kalian said softly. I can wait. The mourner bowed in gratitude. As he watched the flickering lights dance on the water, a thought crossed his mind. Every land has its own way of whispering goodbye to the dead. In Kairos, the superstition is dark. If the living cross a bridge while red blooms drift below, the dead lose their path to the afterlife. But back in Secretia, his true home, they plant the Sinesta, atop the grave. A flower that shifts from white at noon to blue at midnight. A stark symbol of separation, proving that the realms of the living and the dead are parallel lines never meant to intersect. He averted his gaze, a heavy weight settling in his chest. Did his brother plant a Sinesta on his grave? Or did the clock rewind before he had the chance? Maybe he was the wandering ghost who lost his way. Suddenly, the mourner returned, thanking him for his patience. He gestured to the bridge. You may pass. Kalian looked at him, eyes shadowed with a quiet melancholy. None of it mattered anymore. Right now, he was just the third prince of Kairos. With a fluid motion, he vaulted back onto his steed, silently wishing the dead a swift peace. I'll pray for you. But the sudden movement threw his hood back, exposing his face. The mourner's eyes went wide with shock. Before he could speak, Kalian galloped away. As he stared after the prince, a voice called out from the crowd. Arson, we need to move. You listening? Arson, the very mage who slaughtered the prince of Secretia. Arson murmured, just. Thought I saw a good soul. Meanwhile, Kalian reached his destination. He'd passed a dozen signs screaming Suspanian. But this place? This was overkill. The air reeked of Suspanian liquor. He stared at the sign, brow furrowed. So the rumors he heard as Byrne weren't just fairy tales. The spy stories were real. He stepped up to the entrance, where a bouncer immediately offered to show him to a table. Kalian shook his head. I need the 4th floor. The bouncer's demeanor shifted instantly. Right this way. He guided Kalian through the noisy tavern into a secluded, empty room. Enjoy your time, he muttered, backing out. Kalian scanned the space. A coat rack on the wall, innocent enough, except for that one odd hook. He'd asked White Eagle for specific intel, where to find the darkest underbelly of Kairos. He twisted the hook. Click. A hidden panel slid open. The 4th floor code in a 2-story building? It didn't mean go up, it meant go deep. Underground. A secret basement level holding the answers he sought. This wasn't some petty gambling den. This was something far more sinister. He navigated the gaming hall, heading straight for room 4. Inside, a coliseum of cruelty, an illegal fighting ring, roaring with the bloodlust of bettors screaming for their champions. The violence reached its climax. Bloody Gerard stood victorious, bathed in gore. The winning bets, on white, were about to cash in. Meanwhile, the loser was hauled out like trash, leaving trails of blood. His backers screamed obscenities at his unconscious form. Kalian watched, disgusted. The metallic stench of blood hung heavy in the air, suffocating every ounce of humanity in the room. It was repulsive. Suddenly, the gatekeeper barked at him, demanding the entry fee. Kalian tossed the coin without looking. The man signaled a girl in the shadows. Hina, get over here, and ordered her to drag him to VIP room 27. This wide-eyed girl rushes Kalian, grabs his hand, and starts mime gesturing at her mouth. He's thinking, what's the vibe? She wants me to follow? Is she mute? As she guides him to his booth, he spots the deformity on her ears. Clipped tips. That's a dead giveaway. She's not wearing that uniform because she applied for the job. Every girl here is wearing a choker rigged with a tracker. Zero exit strategy. The girl jabs a finger at him, demanding focus, then points aggressively at the tray. Message received. Put your money down, big shot. He flicks a few gold coins her way. If he wants to break the system, he's got to play the game first. You can't even call these rules, it's basic math. You drop cash, meatheads brawl, and if your pick is the last one standing, your stash doubles. 3 florins turn into 6, 6 turn into 12. It's an infinite money glitch. Just rinse and repeat until you're swimming in it. Callian has been on a tear, stacking chips like skyscrapers on the table. That's how a measly 3 florins morphed into 1,536. The pit bosses are whispering, throwing shade his way. He smirks, thinking, I didn't come here for the pocket change. The main event kicks off with a quadruple payout. In the white corner, the bloody hammer, Scion, and his victim, the so-called undefeated punching bag. Callian leans over the rail, adrenaline spiking. It's him, Kiri. Back when Callian was still living as Burn, Kiri dropped some heavy lore about his past, about being raised in a hellhole like this, fighting for scraps until his sister passed away. And now, the legend is right there in the flesh. Callian recalls the moment he asked, do you want to become a knight? And Kyrie's response, I want to be the blade in your highness's hand. A promise he kept until his dying breath. In the pit, they call him Monster Eye Kyrie, all because of the mismatching irises. Callian instantly slams everything on black, all in on Kyrie. Hina stares at the mountain of chips on her tray, totally shook. The rest of the crowd looks at him like he grew a second head. They're wondering if this guy has insider info, or if he's just clinically insane. The hype man on the mic roasts the challenger. Current win rate, 0%. Can the eternal loser finally catch a break in this rematch? The goon who shook him down for the entrance fee steps up, actually looking concerned. He warns him that the bet is insane. No need to flex this hard. It's pure pity speaking. Dude, bet on the other guy. That jobber has literally never won a single fight. Hina flinches at the harsh truth, but Callian snaps her back to reality, asking if she counted the stack. He's talking about his bet on black. Double check it. Make sure the payout is ready. The goon throws his hands up. Fine. If you lose every cent you grinded for, that's on you, bro. Bloody Hammer Scion lives up to the name pure brutality. Down in the pit, the pre-fight ritual begins. A heckler screams at Scion, end him properly this time. Finish the job and the payout goes 10 times higher. How is that trash even still breathing? Kyrie tunes out the noise, locking eyes with Callian for a split second. Scion sneers, telling the new high roller he's about to go broke, blinded by greed and betting on a cockroach that refuses to die. The chains drop. It's go time. Scion blinks forward pure speed, launching a haymaker that Kiri barely slips past. But Callian sees the setup, a right hook screaming in from the blind side. Kyrie throws up a forearm guard, but the impact cracks his defense. Too slow. Scion howls, burying a heavy kick into Kyrie's ribs, launching him across the ring. Kiri slams into the cage fence, blood spraying from his mouth. The bloodthirsty mob screams at Scion to finish it, demanding fists instead of feet. Scion obliges, raining down blows. Callian grips the rail, knuckles white. Without a sword, Kiri is getting worked. Why is he tanking it? He's capable of wrecking this guy. Kyrie tries to snap back, but Scion weaves effortlessly, smirking. Told ya, you're moving in slow motion. Another hit lands. You're just a tenacious cockroach. Scion laughs as more crimson splatters the canvas. Scion unleashes a blur of strikes, winding up for the execute. This ends now. The finishing blow is chambered. Callian realizes Kiri is about to fold. He leaps up, shattering the spectator vibe, and roars into the pit. Cover your shoulders before you strike. Kiri's eyes snap open. He heeds the command instantly. Scion's fist tears through the air toward his face. Kiri ducks under the death blow, drops his center of gravity, and tucks tight. Callian smirks. The momentum just shifted. Kyrie explodes upward, bam! A shot to the chest rocks Scion off balance, followed instantly by a second strike, straight to the jaw. A tooth goes flying, and Scion crumbles to the floor, lights out. The arena goes dead silent, brains unable to process the upset. Then, a voice cracks the silence. Monster Eye Kiri just flattened the bloody hammer. Scion secures the W. The crowd goes feral, spitting curses at the winner, while Kiri's gaze locks onto Callian like a heat-seeking missile. Callian grins, soaking up the hate and the victory. Suddenly, a towering heavy steps into his personal space, barking that the boss wants a word and that he better follow. Escorted into the lion's den, the ringmaster's office, the boss leans back, remarking on the kid's crazy talent, turning 3 measly coins into nearly 6,000. Shadows in the room shift as goons grip their weapons. The boss admits he's sweating bullets. About handing that much cash to a total rookie, Callian chuckles, shaking his head. Figured you'd at least try to negotiate, but wow, you are way dimmer than you look. The insult lands hard, turning the boss's face a shade of angry red, demanded to know who this punk thinks he is. Drop the hood, let's see the face. Callian tilts his head. You sure you want that smoke? See this face. and your life gets real complicated. The boss just sneers, claiming he loves a good surprise. He signals his lackey, and the thug stomps toward Kalyan, grumbling that he needs a peek at this precious face. The audacity to keep hiding it. The second the goon's hand reaches for the fabric, flash, Kalyan drives a dagger through the guy's hand. An agonizing shriek tears through the room. The guards freeze, staring in total shock, while Kalyan sighs. And here I thought you guys had basic survival instincts. The air leaves the room. The boss goes pale. Realizing he didn't invite a victim, he invited a psycho who doesn't hesitate to stab. He stammers that the cash is too heavy to drop all at once. Just wait a beat, they'll get the funds. Kalyan twirls the dagger like a fidget spinner. Keep the cash, he says, eyes cold. Give me the monster. I want Kiri. The ringmaster panics, yelling that the idiot is their new golden goose, and the big boss would never approve. He wants to argue, but the words die in his throat. Say the wrong thing, lose his head. Even with backup, he's alone in the room with this demon, and the numbers don't feel like an advantage anymore. He tries to refuse, but Kalyan reads him like a book and unleashes his aura. Boom! The pressure hits the man like a truck, and he feels a sudden breeze downstairs. Kalyan's invisible slash ripped his pants wide open, exposing bright pink underwear. So, 6,000 florins plus your life? Or do we make a deal? The man is shaking in his boots. An aura user? Right here? He screams for his subordinates to drag Kiri in immediately. As they scramble, Kalyan wipes a thin trail of blood from his lip, knowing he can't pull that stunt twice. His body is screaming at him. He just has to bluff until the exit. The henchman returns solo. Slight issue. Kiri won't budge without Hina. Kalyan pauses. Who? Then it clicks the sister. In the past timeline, she chose death, and Kiri broke, crushed by his failure to protect her. Kalyan waves his hand dismissively, acting like he couldn't care less. Just drag 'em both here. Actually, never mind. I'll get her myself. The boss tries to scurry off to prep their exit, but Kalyan isn't done. Hold up. He extends a palm. I'll be taking my entry fee. And my winnings. He grabs the loot and smoothly escorts the sibling duo out of the hellhole. Outside, the pair is rattled, Kyrie clutching his sister tight to shield her. He stammers a thank you to Kalyan. He opens his mouth to ask why, but Kalyan cuts him off. Relax. No hidden agenda here. He unclips his cloak and drapes it over the shivering girl, adding he means no harm. As the hood falls back, Kyrie gasps. The third prince stands before him. Kiri drops his head instantly, apologizing profusely for not recognizing royalty and daring to doubt him. Kalyan grips his shoulder. Head up. None of that. He's the one who shouldn't be bowing. Brother and sister, half-elves, ragged clothes, it's obvious they've been living in hell. In the previous life, Kiri failed to save Hina. Kalyan points at the boy. Shoulders exposed like that? Classic rookie mistake. You want to be a knight or what? Kyrie looks at his sister, eyes burning with determination. Not just a knight. I want to become a sword that protects everything in this world. That answer earns a smile. Kalyan tosses a blade to him. You can't be a knight overnight. Be my shield first. You want to master the art of the sword? Come find me. He turns, heading back to his horse, leaving Kyrie staring at the valuable weapon in shock. Why? Why give us this? Kalyan smiles, memories of their old friendship flooding back. Because you need a good sword. It's the least he can do to repay an old debt. Meanwhile, at the Mage Association, Alan watches a letter turn to ash in his office. The spy at the arena reported something weird. Prince Kalyan told Melfir Pollen the chandelier made him uncomfortable and asked for a checkup. And the Baron, sweating buckets, found a cut rope. Alan frowns, the mystery deepening. How the hell did the prince know? Finally, the MC showed up. He dragged himself into the office, forcing a grin, but the mage clocked his disheveled look instantly. Alan frowned. Get into a brawl? What happened to your clothes? The prince shook his head. No fight, actually. Just stuff. The mage started brewing some tea, noting the exhaustion dripping from the boy's voice. Sounds like today was a nightmare, Alan muttered. The MC sighed. You have no idea. Longest day ever. Internally, he was tallying his wins. Secured Kyrie? Check. Laid the trap for the tea poisoner? Double check. Everything was following the script, so why the knots in his stomach? Maybe he was moving too fast, doing too much in zero time. Alan shot him a side-eye, flicking a finger to levitate the teapot. Kalyan watched the magic, finally admitting, this place actually looks like a wizard's den now. Alan scoffed. What were you expecting? Floating eyeballs? In a bubbling cauldron of mystery goo? Yeah. Kalyan smirked, confirming it. He scanned the room again. It was surprisingly normal. Well, except for that unsheathed dagger sitting on the table. That stood out like a sore thumb. Wait, he recognized that hilt. His heart skipped a beat. Alan's voice cut through the silence. Wondering why that's out? Doesn't seem like decor, Kalyan replied cautiously. Suddenly, magic flared. The dagger snapped into the air. The point locked onto Callian. Panic surged, no time to dodge. The blade lunged forward, piercing impact imminent. Blood sprayed from the prince's lips. Alan watched with cold, analytical eyes. Even with a broken body. You're fast. The MC had flared his aura to block the steel, but his frail constitution couldn't handle the strain. Alan recalled the blade with a wave of his hand. Sisfanian relic. Mimics hidden weapons. Consider it a warning shot. Callian gasped for air, realizing it was a test, not an assassination. He'd been too jumpy, flashing his aura instantly. Alan stepped closer, looming over him. You have aura, but you've never trained with a sword. He gripped Callian's shoulder, channeling magic. Since the day we met, things haven't added up. I wrote it off as coincidence initially, but then the oddities started piling up. The king says you're terrified of horses. The nobles? They say you're a completely different person. And when you found out you were poisoned? No fear, just rage. You wanted blood. That kind of killing intent only comes from someone who's taken lives. Plus, you predicted the accident at the equestrian show, and you stopped it. So, care to explain yourself to your master? Suddenly, strength flooded the MC's veins. Healing magic? While interrogating him, Callian was confused, but he looked up into Alan's eyes. No malice there. Alan wanted to believe him. Callian clenched his fist, steeling himself. I'm not Callian, he confessed. I am Burn Secretia. He spilled everything, the whole truth. Dead silence. Alan let out a heavy sigh, clutching his head. The axis of time. That's what this is? But the real question is Prince Callian dead? The MC shook his head. I don't think so. I didn't get it at first. But he's here. I can feel the kid's faint presence. Alan stared, rubbing his temples. When we first met, you said you didn't want the throne. So what is it? What's your endgame? Stopping the war, the MC replied instantly. I don't know why Franz is after the time axis yet. But if we don't fix the root cause, history just repeats itself. I need to find the trigger. Alan paused, processing. Are you doing this for yourself? Or for Burn's brother, Chase? Callian blinked. What? There's something you need to know, Alan said gravely. In Secretia, there is only one prince, Chase, the concubine's son. The queen has no children. Burn Secretia doesn't exist. The words hit the MC like a lightning bolt. His mind raced. Doesn't exist? Anywhere? Why? Was it the time travel? Did he break the timeline? Was this the price of using the axis? Is that why he's in Callian's body? He stared at his hands, Callian's hands. This body had a life before him. He clenched his fist. He could still feel the echo of the real prince. He'd hoped that if he was here, maybe someone swapped into his original body. But if he was here, another Burn couldn't exist. He squeezed his eyes shut, the guilt crushing him. He had stolen a life. Alan's voice cut through the dark thoughts. Chase is already solidifying his power. Since the past and present were nothing like his memories, the future was basically an unwritten script. That meant the rules had changed. As the third prince of Ceres, living with a constant target on his back, worrying about Secretia's crown prince was a luxury he couldn't afford. He was handling his own survival just fine. Callian caught the steely resolve in Alan's eyes and smirked. The mage was giving him permission to move forward without looking back. He appreciated the concern, but he needed to set the record straight immediately. That worry? Let it go. The second I opened my eyes in Ceres, I buried the ghost of Burn. That life is over. The mage blinked, clearly thrown off. You really okay with that? Even if you aren't the real prince of Ceres? Alan stared at him, stunned, then let out a low chuckle. He shook his head, wondering why he'd been stressing over it. Time to clear the air from the get-go. I only made a pact with one person, you. Alan beamed, genuinely relieved, and they headed back to the palace. Then came the big question. Did Callian know about the time axis? Judging by the prince's face, he definitely did. So, what's the intel? Alan dropped the bomb. Last year, right around this season, Prince Chase grilled me about the time axis. He even infiltrated Secretia, but came up empty-handed. All he learned was that humans didn't build it. Then, a month ago, news broke the time axis just vanished from Secretia. I traveled back 10 years exactly 1 month ago, Callian mused, the gears turning in his head. Did his regression shatter the timeline? Was he the reason the axis disappeared? He pressed for answers on the why and how. Alan shut it down instantly. We're chasing our tails here. We won't find those answers, no matter how hard we overthink it. But there is someone who knows. Someone way above my pay grade. And you'll meet him soon. Sisfanian. Callian's gaze drifted to the towering dragon statue dominating the square. Right. The coming-of-age ceremony was around the corner. The big moment. For the Prince of Ceres, the Rosalita. It's the ultimate ritual to prove he's a true royal heir. By hunting down an empty Sisfanian nest to commune with the dragon's will. But you can't pass the trial if you're dead, the mage quipped. We need to fix that poisoned tea situation. Fast. Callian nodded, a dangerous glint in his eyes. Agreed. The trap I set should be ready to spring by now. Back at the palace, Callian went straight for the carnivorous plant. Ian was fuming behind him. Do you have any idea how panicked I was? You said midnight. It's practically dawn. Callian tuned him out, intently inspecting the leaves. Still green. Perfect. He called out to his exhausted servant. Ian sighed. Look, if you're finally going to sleep, I'll help you prep. But Callian cut him off, a mischievous grin spreading across his face. Forget sleep. Come see something cool. He dashed out onto the terrace. Ian scrambled after him, confused. Your Highness? It's freezing out here. What are we doing? Callian scanned the darkness, hunting for a specific glow. He realized the flower pot from the Magic Association, the one that sheds glowing pollen when it dies, was doing its job. It was a rare breed, so nobody knew its secrets. He'd purposely accidentally spilled the poisoned tea on it earlier, right in front of the staff, watching them like a hawk. That poison was potent stuff, strong enough to wipe out a platoon in a week. If the plant drank it, it should be dead as a doornail. But the flower in his room? Totally fine. Unwithered, which meant someone swapped it out to hide the evidence, triggering the glowing pollen from the dying original plant. Ian gasped as a neon trail lit up the night. The culprit couldn't just trash the poisoned flower, so they stashed it. Big mistake. That glowing dust was a literal arrow pointing to the bad guy. The trail of pollen led straight to the Hija Palace. Queen Celeste, caught red-handed, the next morning brought gray skies and heavy rain. As Callian watched the downpour, Ian slid into the room with the tea tray. You slept well? Ian paused, surprised to see him already up. Good morning? That's new. He set the tray down, looking a bit awkward, since he was usually the one waking the prince up. Callian smiled. Just woke up early. Ian handed him the cup, still shaking his head. First time for everything. Callian took the poisoned tea. Ian glanced at the window. Was it the rain? Is that what woke you? Callian took a sip, and his eyes narrowed. The taste was sharper, bitter. Celeste hadn't just continued the poison, she'd upped the dosage. He pressed the guy for intel. Were there any high-profile events dropping this week that would draw out the entire nobility? The source confirmed a major conference next week, one the king himself would be crashing. Callian took a slow, calculated sip of his drink. Following the political drama, there'd be an evening banquet. That was D-Day. The perfect stage to chug a lethal dose of poisoned tea. He stared out the window, mentally sending a challenge to the queen. Bring your best game, your highness. Down the hatch went the antidote. Ian popped up, all smiles. What you taking, boss? Callian snapped back instantly. Vitamins. Chill. He knew the truth, his body was failing. Maybe he needed to fuel up earlier? He yanked the pill bag, strings tight, and stashed it before anyone saw. Ian, sensing the vibe was off, stepped in to help him suit up. Stepping out of his chambers, Callian's eyes lingered on the empty cup. Why was that stupid thing living rent-free in his head? Fully geared up, Callian hit the dining hall and shot a glance at the empty chair. Franz was a no-show. Ever since that disaster at the equestrian show, the guy had basically ghosted breakfast. Good riddance. Less drama to mess up the master plan. Callian shifted his focus to Randall. The roses are about to bloom, he stated flatly. The prince's head snapped up, locking eyes with him instantly. After a few seconds of intense silence, Randall stood up and walked out without a word. Ian leaned in, whispering, Why bring up the flowers? Callian shrugged. Saw them on my walk. Just reminded me of Randall's little hobby. Just a guy obsessed with gardening. Outside, the rain was relentless, but Callian didn't care it was training time. Lungs burning, he paused by a tree to catch his breath. Suddenly, his teacher emerged from the gloom. You look worse every day, the mage observed. Is self-torture your new favorite hobby? Skip endurance training, and I lose control completely, Callian shot back. Where have you been hiding? Alan dropped a bomb. He'd been chatting with Romain. Callian blinked. You guys are on a first-name basis? You call him Romain? Alan shrugged. It's not like we're besties. I just call him that. I'm old enough to be his grandpa. Anyway. So, why did you summon me? 2 favors, the prince demanded. First, I need a background check on 2 specific targets. Alan nodded. Child's play. Second, I want a deep dive investigation into the nobility's shady dealings. Specifically, the Brizzen family dirt. The teacher mulled it over, then smirked. Easy money. But seriously, 2 jobs at once? You're working me to the bone here. Callian cut him off. She upped the poison dosage. Alan paused. Sounds like you found your culprit. I know exactly who it is, Callian said. And she's going to start watching you closely soon. She can't touch a great mage easily, but she's desperate for power right now. Danger is rising. The mage raised an eyebrow. So, I'm your meat shield? No, Callian corrected. You're my weapon. He knew better than anyone what a high-tier mage could do. The White Demon's army had wiped out his homeland using signs just like this. That's why he needed his own mage squad. Alan countered. Mages aren't knights, kid. You can't just train them into soldiers. You get that, right? Actually, you can, Callian replied. The teacher stared, shocked, then let out a nervous chuckle. When Romain started his mage squad, everyone looked at him like he was crazy, Callian explained. Even the Breezens ignored him. They didn't think he was a threat, so they let him be. And he pulled it off. But the second the squad was ready, he died. Suspiciously. Franz inherited the throne and the mages. I know how this story plays out. But this time, the Breezens are going to be in our way from day one. It's not going to be a walk in the park. That's why I'm using the Queen's poison tea as my bargaining chip. Alan looked lost. What's the play? Alan asked. Callian grinned. Top secret. Just know it starts soon. The mage grabbed his head, groaning. Great answer. Thanks for nothing, Callian advised. Ask Romain. He's got a lot on his mind. We need to exploit Celeste's mistake to win these negotiations. Meanwhile, the maid reported back to the Queen. Dosage increased, just like you ordered. Celeste slammed her teacup onto the table. Handle this properly, she hissed. I'm sick of this bad news. I thought we were past these annoyances? The maid trembled. I'll keep that in mind. Plant's voice cut through the silence. He pressed his mother, asking if she was cooking up another shady scheme. She clapped back, claiming the person who should be acting was doing absolutely nothing, so she was stuck suffering in this mess. He got right in her face, snapping that he didn't give a damn. He only came to deliver a message. Stop saying it's not his place to decide, just because she thinks he's useless. But honestly, this misery was her inevitable destiny. He clenched his fist, shaking with rage, and stormed off. She shouted after him, mocking his weakness, vowing she'd handle everything herself, so that no one and nothing blocked her path. Cut to the big day, the palace trip. Hina was prepping outfits and humming a happy tune. Her brother noticed the vibe shift. She was actually in a good mood today. Was she really that hyped? She beamed, signing excitedly that they were finally heading to the palace and would get to meet the prince. He patted her head, teasingly asking if she was crushing on him that hard. She nodded vigorously, wishing nightfall would just hurry up. Meanwhile, over at the royal quarters, servants were getting Callian dripped out for the banquet. Ian adjusted the prince's collar, mentioning that the noble council was currently in session, so he had to be at dinner in 1 hour. Suddenly, Callian fished something out from his robes, flashing a mysterious smile. He needed Ian to run a specific errand for him. Then, he headed straight for the Queen, thinking it was finally time to end this little game with the poisoned tea served exclusively to the weakest prince. Ending this ritual would be a total game changer. The doors to the Queen's office flew open. He strutted in, confident smirk locked and loaded, and met her stare head-on. Elsewhere, Ian was galloping hard to fulfill the mission. The prince had handed him 2 letters, one for the Magic Association, one for his master. Priority 1, the association. Priority 2, the teacher. Ian had panicked earlier. Was the prince really planning to solo the banquet? Callian had shut him down, insisting he could handle the heat. He said not to stress, but Ian was spiraling. This felt like severe déjà vu. Maybe he was overreacting. He wanted to believe the prince was safe, but the trauma was real. In a past timeline, Callian downed a drink and collapsed right in front of the Queen, coughing up crimson blood. Meanwhile, at the association, Alan was conferring with Yuria Siren, the boss of the Siren Mage crew. She confirmed the prep work was done. They had a stack of receipts, even just looking at the official records. But wasn't it super sus that this hadn't gone public? Alan shrugged it off, weak nobles. Would never dare grill the Brisson family. She agreed. If they tried, they'd end up as unsolved cases themselves. But how would the prince weaponize this info? Alan stayed quiet until the door burst open. Ian stood on the threshold, calling out for the chairman in a panic. Seeing Alan was a lucky break. The prince had sent mail for both of them. The second, Alan read the note. His face went dark. He grabbed his gear, cursed loudly, and bolted for the exit, demanding the location of this banquet. Ian warned him. No invitation, no entry. Alan whipped around, screaming that protocol didn't matter right now. His master was about to die. That terrified Ian. The letter to the teacher was grim. Callian wrote that today, he was gambling his life to make a deal with Silica. If the plan went south, Alan had to save him. 1 hour prior, Callian stepped into the Queen's lair. Tea was poured, and once the servants cleared out, Callian noted it was just the 2 of them, so he suggested they drop the act and be real. She snapped her fan shut, slamming it onto the table. She claimed she didn't mind, though she wondered what difference it would make. He took a sip, reiterating that they should keep it honest but stay classy. She crossed her arms, admitting she was curious about his little speech, but clearly, he just came to argue. She was already regretting giving a low-born like him even a moment of attention. He cut through the noise, mentioning the poisoned tea. The room went dead silent. She glared. He smiled, telling her to just get it over with. He was playing it cool, but his throat was tight with disgust. She forced a nervous smile, feigning ignorance, then laughed it off. He asked if she was really going to gaslight him like that. He figured she'd try to play dumb, so he came prepared. He pulled out the sugar cubes from the White Eagle, declaring he had to take a massive risk to stop her from pulling this stunt ever again. Right now, all he had was a strong heart, so he was going all in. It was a poison that stopped the heart cold. The queen's hand twitched. He dumped the entire lethal dose into the tea, noting that Silver wouldn't detect a thing. And those magical detection tests? Useless. Completely off the radar. But thanks to his blessing power, his heart refuses to quit. Here's the catch, that power isn't a multitasker. While the blessing battles the tea's toxin, the chronic poison he's been chugging for weeks is about to rampage through his system. And guess who looks sus immediately? The queen practically howls with laughter. She loses it, cackling like a maniac before screaming. Does he seriously think he calls the shots here? Does he think she's a rookie at this game? Everyone knows she's the one who punched his mother's ticket to the afterlife. Her words cut deep, but he keeps his poker face. He asks what the move is with the tea. Her savage reply, drink up, chug as much as he can handle. He takes that as a challenge, not a refusal, and knocks back a few sips. Silica watches him down every drop, grinning as she calls him a total moron. Who would even dare point a finger at her? Even Lemaine walks on eggshells around her. She owns Kaylee's. There is nothing she can't grab, including that throne. She just deletes obstacles from her path. That is how she wins, step by bloody step. Except for one glitch in the Matrix, Lemaine. That is the one trophy she is missing. But the moment the evening banquet kicks off, Callian starts hacking up Crimson. The queen watches him crumble, hiding a wicked smirk behind her fan. Panic explodes among the nobles. Drained by the toxin, Callian hits the floor. The princes and the king launch from their seats instantly. People are screaming for guards and medics. The queen shoots a cold glance at Callian, thinking he should just accept his fate as roadkill on her highway to greatness, just like the rest of them. The crowd swarms the prince. Someone asks if the drink was spiked. Another argues that, even His Majesty, hadn't taken a sip yet, so that makes no sense. Was the prince targeted before the party even started? Who was hanging out with him earlier? One noble shuts the gossip down fast, warning them to zip it unless they want a date with the executioner. Every eye locks on the queen. They know she pulled the trigger. Hearing the whispers, she smiles. Let them talk. No one has the guts to accuse her. Another easy W for the queen. Lemaine rushes to his son in a panic. He scoops him up, begging him to wake up, screaming at the guards to find the priest. Terror takes over. He orders his son to keep his eyes open, quietly calling his name, gripping his hand tight. Flashbacks of his mother's death hit Lemaine like a truck. That day, she reached out, just like this, begging him to protect their boy. Seeing Callian in that exact same tragic pose triggers his rage. The queen chimes in, playing the victim, saying she never imagined such horror inside the castle. She claims she can't stand another second of this, and tries to dip back to her palace. She heads for the door, but the king hisses, asking if she plans to murder his son too. He bellows her name, shattering the room. The nobles freeze in terror, and she spins around to face the king, genuinely shook. This time, he isn't biting his tongue. Emboldened, the nobles finally start spilling the tea on the situation. They were together before the party. Was she plotting this hit the whole time? If she's the culprit, the puzzle pieces fit perfectly. Everyone was staying quiet, but she's out here openly assassinating the prince. Silica grips her fan until her knuckles turn white, then snaps it open to hide her face, claiming she has absolutely zero clue what he's talking about. She heard Callian was just a sickly kid. Lemaine snaps back, reminding her that when Freya was sick, she, backed by the Bryson Knights, used that exact same excuse. Blaming it all on illness? Even right now, she's wearing that same innocent mask. The queen figures, even with this drama, he can't pin a crime on her, because no one will back his story. She doubles down, asking if the kid was actually healthy. The princes, who see him at breakfast, should know the truth about Callian's stats. Randall looks anxious, and she pivots to them, asking if she needs to fact-check with them. Lemaine barks that that's enough. She exclaims, she's just worried about this dramatic scene he's causing, worried that Callian, or rather, the children's mental state will suffer. Furious, the king draws his sword. Then Franz drops the mic. She can call anyone she wants her child, but keep Callian's name out of her mouth. The queen stares, stunned. Franz vouches for him. Callian was totally fine, zero health issues. The guy even told them not to stress about him. She hisses his name, seething with rage. She didn't see that betrayal coming. And right at that second, a priest bursts into the hall. The queen uses the chaos to flee to her palace, while the healer rushes to Callian. The king begs him to use divine magic, stat. But the moment the priest reaches out, boom, he's rejected by Alan's magical barrier. Alan sprints into the hall, screaming that healing magic will kill him instantly. The king roars, asking what the hell he's doing. Callian needs a cure now. Alan cuts him off. The prince has a circle in his heart. Magic is a death sentence. The room goes dead silent. The realization hits them like a truck. Mix a magic circle with holy power? We all know the drill. The user's heart detonates. Instant game over. Romain starts spiraling. So, what's the play? As his son starts hacking up blood again, he whips around to the mage, terror in his eyes. If holy power is a bust, what's left? Magic? Can you fix this mess? Alan shoots it down straight. Unless we're talking about a druid with nature's touch, forget it. Standard magic won't work. Romain loses it. Then improvise. Look at the kid. He's in agony. Flashback hits Alan hard. He sees his own son, dying from poisoned wine right in front of him. What's wrong, kiddo? History is repeating itself with his student. He pulls Callian's head onto his lap, gently brushing his face. Callian blinks open, staring up at him. The prince looks confused by the mage's heartbroken expression. Alan channels his mana. Never thought I'd have to cast this curse of a spell again. Back when his own boy was fading from the poison, he did the exact same thing. Held him close, cast the spell. Just to stop the pain, he whispered. The magic hit, and the world went black. Cut to the aftermath. The city is drowning in paper. Thousands of flyers, exposing the Breezen family, litter the streets. It's like the grave itself is screaming for justice. They're calling out the butchers who slaughtered 37 innocent people. The Breezen family is walking straight into a hurricane. Rumors that the queen poisoned Prince Callian, stacked with the Breezen's dirty laundry. The public is out for blood. The nobility is scrambling to cut ties. One wrong move, and they get swept up in the purge too. The mob hates the queen. Even the king points the finger, confirming she's the one behind the poison cup. Who knew royalty could be such a cold-blooded killer? Down with Queen Celeste. Meanwhile, Alan drops a bombshell at the royal meeting. Prince Callian's orders. If we want that mage squad, we have to back Celeste into a corner with zero exit strategy. Romain's eyes go wide. That's exactly his play. He stares at the paperwork, totally floored. Is the kid actually on my wavelength? Later, the queen storms into Callian's room to confront him. He's still bedridden, looking rough. She starts digging. Setting up a mage squad is tough work, isn't it? When did you even find the time? Callian hits her with a weak smile. No clue what you're talking about, Your Majesty. Thanks to you, I've got a long recovery ahead. She forces a nervous smile, her mind racing. She heard he was knocking on death's door for a week, but his voice? It's too steady, too strong. Callian catches the slip and doubles down on the act. I nearly died, he rasps. I can't chat for long. I'm fading fast. If that's all, get out. I need my rest. She grips her knee, knuckles turning white. Then she tries to bargain. How about a trade? 1 for 1. He shoots back. That deal expired a week ago. The board has changed. But sure, entertain me. She bites her lip, desperate. Admit your intel is fake, and I won't block your little mage project. Callian chuckles, then full-on laughs in her face. Wow, you really don't get it, do you? You think I need your permission? He mocks her. Is that really all you've got? Snap. Her fan shatters in her grip. Fine. Name your price, she hisses. Callian stops laughing. He's picturing a palace scrubbed clean of the Breezen bloodline, in a land ruled by Sisfanian's heirs. He muses, why is there so much sword rattling? Dissolve the Fable Knight Corps. She instantly bristles. That's her personal army. Callian knows exactly what he's asking. Those knights are the only thing balancing her against the king's royal guard. Lose the knights, lose the throne. Disband them, he commands. Replace them with my mages. No negotiations. She goes silent, grinding her teeth. She's checkmated. Callian snaps his fingers, and his servant drops a scroll in front of her. It's sealed with a blood oath. She stares at it, horrified. Is that what I think it is? Bingo, Callian confirms. Ancient magic. It binds the contract directly to your heart. Break the deal? Your heart literally rips itself apart. Instant death. So, what's it gonna be? While the queen is sweating bullets, the third prince wakes up. Randall gets the news while pruning roses in the garden. He stares at the petals with a heavy, melancholic look. I knew it, he thinks. He locked eyes with me right before he collapsed. He's been planning to drag me into this mess from the start. I wonder how this rose is going to bloom. He considers giving Callian what he wants, just as Franz walks in. He spun around, dropping the update. Callian is in the clear. Meanwhile, Randall was out there snipping roses, completely shook, thinking, he never expected Franz to fold like a cheap lawn chair. The vibe here has definitely shifted. But just then, Celeste snapped, screaming at him, Hold up, if I swear this oath, what's the catch? She didn't even get to finish her rant, because Callian tapped his chest. Simple. This magic locks the promise right here in your heart. You break the deal, your heart stops beating. Instant death. Celeste was fuming, biting her lips so hard it might bleed. Honestly, the trust between them was zero anyway. What choice did she have? She leaned back, staring at the paper like it was a death sentence. The shock was real. Silence stretched out for a long time. Then snatch. She grabbed the pen right out of Ian's hands and scribbled her signature. Boom. A blinding magical light exploded, wrapping around her entire body. Her hands glowed with mystical fire. Kalian grinned, looking like a mastermind. Perfection. We're in business. Celeste, stressed out of her mind, slammed the pen on the floor and stormed toward the exit. But Kalian wasn't done with her yet. He called out to clear the air, afraid she'd get it twisted. My brothers and I? We aren't close. Franz didn't back off today for me. He knew if you kept talking, the king's blade would have sliced your throat open right there. That hit her hard. She froze, picturing her son. Her head dropped, heavy with sadness. But then, she snapped back to reality, and power walked out of there. Kalian watched her go, totally confused. Suddenly, Alan spoke up, surprised Celeste actually showed up. Meanwhile, our protagonist was chilling, devouring bananas, and building a tower out of the peels. Alan smirked. Wow, someone's hungry. Kalian beamed back, looking way too happy, and said, these bananas are top tier. Alan raised an eyebrow. Better than, being alive. And eating real food? Kalian tossed the last peel. Hey, I did my job. Alan wasn't buying it. Are you mocking me? You almost lost your legs. If Hina hadn't stepped in with her nature magic, you'd be a goner. Kalian blinked. Wait, Hina's a healer? That was news to him. Alan pressed him. Didn't you know? Kalian admitted he had zero connection with that crew in his past life. By the time I met him, she was already gone. Alan realized the insanity of what just happened. So you're saying you flushed the poison by just hoping for a miracle, praying the tea would work? You drank actual poison on purpose. You were bedridden for a week. What kind of chaotic logic is that? Kalian just smirked. You're overreacting. Want a banana? Alan snapped. Enough! Just take the papers. Kalian grabbed the package, tore it open, and that smile returned. Alan nodded. It's the IDs you wanted. Kalian laughed. Totally forgot, I even asked for these. Figured I'd have to forge them myself. Then he read the names and stopped cold. These were his besties' names, Alan explained. Needed a surname, so I gave them the prince's old one. It didn't look like he just picked up some random kids. Kalian paused, then gave a genuine smile. Thanks, teacher. These weren't fakes. They were official. Legally, these kids were commoners, living on his land, from day one. He protected them like true subjects. Alan dropped the truth. Rumine set it up. Suddenly, the protagonist shot a look at his teacher. Alan asked, so, how's it feel being the king's favorite son? Kalian asked, are people really saying that? Alan sighed. You caused a massive scene in front of the nobles. Rumors were inevitable. Kalian wondered, how am I supposed to feel about that? Guess I should enjoy the clout. Later, he was back in his room, sitting on the sofa, mulling over the heavy stuff. He glanced at Ian. Hey, can you trash this peel for me? The servant stepped up, using his full name. Kalian paused. What's wrong? Ian had news. I'm resigning. I won't serve you anymore. Kalian was floored. His jaw hit the floor in total shock. Ian's mind drifted back. He was a kid again, walking through the mansion, then breaking into a run. It was the far-right room on the second floor. He was peeking from behind a pillar, shouting, Found you! He approached his brother, who was lying in bed, wrapped up like a mummy. He chirped a happy hello. But inside that room, the guilt was eating him alive. His brother asked, Did you hear the cicadas singing today? Ian nodded confidently. Yeah, they're black and ugly and super loud. They only come out in summer. They make this weird buzzing noise and have these funny little wings. That eerie buzzing sound drifted up from the valley floor. His brother confirmed the noise was bizarre, and Ian nodded in silent agreement. Did he want a closer look? Ian offered to hunt the creatures down for him, but his brother instantly shut that idea down. The whole thing terrified him. He'd rather lose himself in the haunting melody of his violin, even as his health deteriorated day by day. Then came the moment he overheard a hushed conversation between his father and a subordinate, something about Lord Manicel's son being a medical prodigy. He debated reaching out for a miracle cure, but the real issue was far more complicated, wasn't it? How could he even ask? Sleeman lowered his gaze, the weight of the situation clearly crushing him. This wasn't easy for anyone. There had to be another way out. He didn't realize back then that when someone is denied the one thing they need, you shouldn't dangle hope in front of them. Suddenly, reality hit him like a truck when his brother clamped a hand onto his shoulder and screamed his name. He demanded Ian's full attention, forcing him to face the brutal truth without looking away, and never forget that he was fading away. The memory of the inferno that later engulfed their home still haunted him. Panic erupted as people screamed to evacuate, begging them to drag Master Ian to safety before the flames consumed everything. And just like that, one day before his 15th birthday ceremony, his brother chose to pull the plug on his own life. Seasons blurred together, summer bled into autumn, then winter froze the world, until the cicadas started their deafening chorus again. He completely shut the world out. Eventually, his father couldn't watch him rot away anymore, and physically dragged him from his room. He scooped him up and carried him into the sunlight. That's when Ian pointed a trembling finger and asked, "Who is that kid?" His father turned, realizing he meant the boy standing there. That was the third prince of the realm. Their eyes locked. In that split second, Ian sealed his fate to serve him. But now, he was dropping a bombshell. He was quitting. Kallian stood there, paralyzed. Terror crept into his voice as he stammered, "Wait, what?" Ian confessed that despite being the prince's shadow, he was clueless about the truth, especially regarding the tragedy. After all, he was the one who had hand-delivered the poison. The protagonist stiffened, eyes widening in total shock. Ian took the heat, insisting the blame lay squarely on his shoulders. He had ignored every red flag, every warning sign. Worst of all, he was absent when the danger was at its peak. He was flying blind, understanding nothing. That was the day he could have died, and Ian had missed the obvious threat. The ghostly silhouette of his brother flashed in his mind again, the boy who begged him to remember he was dying. Kallian's voice cracked like thunder, screaming his name, commanding him to look up. Ian broke down into uncontrollable sobbing. Finally, he met the protagonist's gaze. Kallian demanded an answer right now. "Who is standing in front of you?" Silence hung in the air as he stared into Ian's eyes. Finally whispering that he was Prince Kallian, the prince stepped closer, placed a hand over his chest, and said, "Exactly." He needed to feel that heart beating. When he first woke up in that strange place, he realized Ian had been his constant. He survived fate's cruel games solely because Ian was there. Ian hadn't abandoned him, and that loyalty was the only reason he was still breathing. Hearing this, Ian's tears flowed harder. Kallian admitted he felt like strangers in some ways. He still didn't know enough about him. But one thing was absolute. He would protect Ian no matter what. Was this real? Ian stumbled back in disbelief. The grief became too much. His face flushed red as he collapsed to his knees, his body shaking with heavy sobs. The protagonist asked why he was crying like that, telling him to dry his eyes and stand up. Ian realized he wasn't going back. At that moment, Kallian reached out a hand, telling him to hold on tight. Ian knew he could never return to his old life, because he had finally found someone who truly needed him. They locked hands, grounding each other. Then, Ian made a dark announcement. He was going to hunt down every single person responsible for this. Kallian whipped around, staring at him in confusion. Ian's expression shifted to cold confidence as he casually started collecting tangerine peels. Kallian asked, "What are you talking about? Was he plotting revenge?" Ian replied that nothing was off limits. He had been through hell because of them. Kallian warned him to stop talking crazy. Plants weren't supposed to act, or it would trigger a full-blown war. Ian snapped, shouting that he didn't give a damn about the war. Bloodline or not, he was done being a son of House Sleeman. Kallian's jaw dropped. Plants? Wait, so Ian knew the truth the whole time? The protagonist threw his hands up with a cheeky smile, refusing to answer. Ian kept screaming. When did he figure it out? Kallian shrugged. It just happened. Ian was losing it, demanding to know how. Kallian just grinned and told him to toss the trash and brew him some coffee once he calmed down. The protagonist suddenly had a random thought. Is Ian gonna actually get taller than me? Meanwhile, Ian was just stunned by the coffee request. He stared face to face with the stranger, confusion clouding his mind. The double stepped closer, flashing an eerie, knowing grin. Then whoosh, the phantom phased right through him like smoke. Kallian froze, watching from a distance as the copy spun around, still smiling. The figure clenched a fist and held it out. A silent offer. Kallian stared at the hand, stunned, then locked eyes with his own reflection. But the image began to dissolve, fading into mist. Paralyzed, he watched the copy's smile linger even as its body evaporated, before blasting him with a blinding flash of magic. Kallian gasped, bolting upright in bed. Just a nightmare. He checked his hands, shaking off the terror. The window was thrown wide open, curtains dancing in the breeze. The presence was gone, completely vanished. He wandered into the garden, plucking a flower, he murmured. Guess he couldn't stick around after finally getting what he wanted. A total disappearance. Looking up at the vast sky, he pictured that face one last time. That's life. It gives you exactly what you ask for. Tracing a smiley face in the air, he whispered, "Make it real." Kallian squeezed his eyes shut. If this life was a cage for that kid, I honestly envy his escape. Alan tried to chime in, but Kallian cut him off. I'm not going to pretend I don't know the work ahead. I've got a mountain to climb, but I need a favor. He spun around, eyes burning with intensity. I'm going to live this second life the right way. With a heavy sigh, he dropped the flower into the water, letting it drift away. Meanwhile, Pavel's night squad disbanded and sent packing back to Marquis Brisson. Romain went on damage control, shutting down any wild gossip about the royal family. Then Alan dropped the bomb. He was building a mage order. Cut to 3 months later, the protagonist was finally bulking up. These seams are screaming for mercy, Jan gasped to Merlin. Get Slake on the line. We need a tailor. Stat. We need serious alterations. Callian fixed his hair, looking sharp. Jan couldn't help but gush. Your clothes are dangerously tight, sir. The prince was glowing up, looking stronger and way more charismatic. Even Romain noticed. You've actually grown, your highness. You're bigger than plants now, filling out your frame nicely. You look solid. Callian smirked. Yeah, grew a bit. Later at the dinner table, the vibe shifted. Is Rosalita ready? Everything was set for the upcoming birthday bash. Alan cleared his throat. I really needed to find you a proper escort, so I set this up. Prince, meet the mage who will take you to Rosalita. It's an honor, truly. Name's Arsene Hertz. Callian's blood ran cold. He froze, staring at the man. Unable to speak, Romain hyped him up. This guy is future mage order material. You two will have plenty of time to bond. On the road, Arsene flashed a charming smile, but Callian turned his back, icing him out. Just talent, huh? Suddenly, the prince smiled, clutching his chest dramatically. Wow, unexpected. Quite the birthday surprise. So, when does this order of mages actually launch? Alan shrugged. Don't hold your breath. No name, no staff, zero official approvals yet. We're running on fumes. It's barely a concept. Arsene kept smiling, but Callian stared back with pure, unadulterated hatred. Alan continued. Since they're mages, why doesn't His Majesty pick the name? Makes sense, right? Romain looked thoughtful, scratching his knee. He was actually considering it. He had a spark of an idea. How about Balkan? At that word, Callian's eyes lit up. He looked away to hide a satisfied smirk. Alan grinned. He knew it. Looks like you were waiting for that one. If I hadn't asked, I'd be dead meat right now. Romain turned beet red, shouting, Hey, I'm the one who asked him. I asked first. Suddenly, Callian pivoted to Arsene. So, Mr. Hertz, what's your take? Arsene looked confused. Excuse me? The protagonist pressed on. Do you like the name Balkan? Does it sound familiar to you? Alan choked on his tea, while the tension in the room skyrocketed. Arsene paused, placing a hand over his heart. I think it's a magnificent name. Callian's smile didn't reach his eyes. Understood. Later, safe under a privacy barrier outside, Alan confronted him. What was that about? I didn't know you two had history. From the old timeline. Did you need him for something? Callian shook his head. No, but listen carefully. In my past life, Arsene was the one who put me in a grave. Alan was stunned. Sure, he's different now. The timeline changed, and the future I knew might never happen. But before he could finish his thought, Alan pressed him. What do you mean? Callian's expression darkened, barely containing his rage. I'm just a little pissed off, remembering his face. Suddenly, a knock at the door interrupted them. The third prince is here to see you. Callian flashed a knowing smile. Long time no see, Baron Melfier. Get comfortable. He kept it casual, apologizing for the cloak and dagger entrance. But for Melfier? This wasn't an intrusion. It was the absolute privilege of a lifetime. Here's the kicker. Prince Callian was a ghost to the nobility. He never mingled. That secrecy was the whole point. He needed eyes on him, and the agenda was crystal clear. Callian cut the small talk dead. I'm here to pay up for my life. Then, the million-dollar question. What is your guild pushing these days? Melfier froze. His brain short-circuited. Diamonds? Tinsel? He stammered. They had solid contracts with the imperial family. Sure. But Callian's gaze bored into him. That wasn't it. Palms slick with sweat. Melfier choked out. We don't have a treaty yet. Callian's grin widened. Could you handle something bigger? Way bigger than a trade union? With enough manpower and cash? Absolutely, Melfier claimed. Callian nodded. We have the people, we have the money, and we have Balkan. Melfier went rigid, jaw practically hitting the floor. Wait, he whispered. Does that mean you're in too? The air in the room turned heavy. Suddenly, Callian erupted into laughter. What a ridiculous question. Of course I'll be there. People, money, and the prince leading Balkan? Melfier did the math. Then it's a done deal. We're building a mage order, Callian declared. Funding isn't an issue. Soldiers aren't the issue. Management is the issue. Melfier blinked. Is this the price for your life? Callian smirked. I've already collected. The words hit Melfier like a freight train. He was terrified. Hand over his heart. Melfier bowed low. Then I am yours to command. Your Highness. Checkmate. Callian knew he'd won. The age of 15 usually meant a death sentence in this timeline, but he just rewrote his destiny. He had loyal allies now. Only one step remained. The oath to Cispanian in Roselith. Time jump. The massive palace doors swung open. He stepped into the grand hall, and the crowd went wild. Prince Callian. It was his birthday, and the hype was real. Dressed to kill, he scanned the room with a perfect, practiced smile. The stage was set. Later, Callian spotted Franz lurking in the hallway and strolled over. "Been a while, brother," Callian chirped. Franz said nothing. Stone cold. Callian shrugged and walked past. "Hey, Blood Eyes." Callian stopped dead. He turned slowly. "Don't ever call me that. My name is Callian," Franz sneered. "Callian? You're no Callian." Callian's heart skipped a beat. Franz circled him like a shark. "You ride like a warrior now. You handle a sword. You've gotten vicious." Franz leaned in close. "You don't even know who you are, do you?" He dropped the question like a bomb. Callian stared ahead, a flicker of genuine fear behind his eyes. He had to stay grounded. "I am not the fallen prince of Secretia," he told himself. "And he is not the mad king who burned my world." The truth was in Cispanian's will. Callian unclenched his fist, plastering that oblivious smile back on his face. "No clue what you're rambling about, bro." He looked bored. Franz glared, furious that his taunt didn't stick. Later, Alan dropped the news. "Franz is sharp. Too sharp. He suspects something. He plays the outcast perfectly. But there's a brain ticking behind that act." Callian frowned. "Is it just an act? It's real," Alan confirmed. "That's why I'm worried." Callian nodded slowly. "I get it. I was so focused on the small stuff, I missed the predator right in front of me." Alan pressed him. "What did you expect? You share a name. But you chose to be Callian, right?" "I did." The answer hung in the air. Alan studied him. "Changing a name is easy. Erasing your soul is the hard part." Suddenly, Alan flicked his wrist. A ring arched through the air. "For you." Callian snatched it out of the air, inspecting the metal. "Use it when you need my brain. When you need to think like an old strategist." Callian felt the hum of mana. "This is enchanted." "Guilty," Alan grinned. "But heads up, it's useless inside the castle. Cispanian's ancient magic will jam the signal. Outside the palace walls, total freedom. One call, instant pickup." Callian mentally high-fived the guy for that. Having a master mage in his back pocket was a total power move. The guy literally told him, "Zero stress. I got you." His inner circle was loyal to the bone. He visualized the lineup: Ian, Hina, Kiri, his absolute ride or dies. Callian smirked. "We'll see about that." On cue, Commander Duran pulled up, bowing low. "An honor to serve you, my prince. I'm at your command. My squad will escort you to Cispanian's chambers." The protagonist realized the vibe was exactly what you'd expect from the Siegfried Knights. Impressive on paper, but he recalled that sometimes they sounded a little too extra. So, these were the guys who turned their young lord into a glorified coffee runner? Ian stepped up. "Time to bounce, your highness. Need anything else before we roll?" "Yup, that was the young lord right there." Callian spun around, eyes gleaming. He tapped Ian's shoulder. "Actually, fetch me a drink." The knight's jaw hit the floor. Ian didn't flinch. "Water? Or maybe a cup of warm tea?" "I'm loving this," Callian quipped. "Right back," Ian shot back. "Good boy," Callian praised, playing the role perfectly. He pivoted to the knights. Horror was plastered all over their faces. Alan watched, thinking, is he for real? Making enemies? Just another Tuesday for him. But this was his one shot to claim the legacy of Cispanian. Moments later, a massive crowd swarmed the palace gates, screaming their adoration. The squad rolled out, arson on point, Ian and Kyrie covering the rear. Franz stood off to the side, watching the drama unfold. Meanwhile, Seelike nursed a mug of tea, dead silent, staring into the void. Callian handled his steed like a total pro, pulling up next to a grinning Alan. The Rosalita had officially begun. It was the prince's big coming-of-age moment. But after barely surviving that last assassination attempt, worry was eating him up. "Should I have tagged along?" Alan muttered. "Nobody knows the future." Then, the realization hit him hard. He was stressing over the wrong guy. It was way more dangerous inside these walls than anything the prince would face out there. King Rumine set down his tea. "You haven't changed a bit. And trust me, that wasn't a compliment." "You worried about the kid?" Alan grinned. "Look at this anxious father figure." It was almost annoying. Hard to believe this guy acted so cold earlier. Alan finally replied, "Every word I said was the absolute truth." The king nodded. "Correct. That's exactly my point." Later, the protagonist checked his ring. Silence. "Guess the signal cuts out inside the palace." "It wasn't connecting. Why isn't he picking up?" Ian asked. Callian sighed. "I heard. Ambassadors from the Tensile Empire just touched down. That explains the chaos at court." "I can talk to you," Ian offered. "I'll be your entertainment," Callian groaned. "I'm already bored of you. I've been staring at your face for days." The knights, meanwhile, weren't hiding their hatred for Callian one bit. Then Ian put on an Oscar-worthy performance, voice trembling like a leaf. He started barking orders. making sure everyone knew this was only about the prince. Lord Allen had set the stage. His Highness has zero magic talent. Basic fencing skills, at best. Basically, he's a delicate flower. Watch him like a hawk. Understand? The knights looked absolutely shook by the disrespect. Disgust was written all over them. Our young master is the heir to House Siegfried, and he gave it all up for this? Is this real life? They were 2 hours out from Latran. The protagonist soaked it all in, lost in thought. Let's stop here, Ian suggested. Hold up, Callian countered. Suddenly, swords drawn everywhere. Callian squinted ahead. Whatever was coming out of the bushes, it didn't scream threat. It looks more like, before he could finish, a hand shot out from the greenery. A girl leaped out, screaming for help. Check those ears. No way. Is that an elf? I'm Shay, she announced. Everyone froze. What is going on here? I'm starving, Shay wailed. Wait, you're looking for food? No, I was just hiding, Callian smirked. Well, you being here, that's actually perfect. I should have said something sooner, she gasped. She bowed in apology. Callian just watched.